when you're living in love and moving from love, you're moving with God. You're moving with the highest good, your higher self, which is connected to the divine, the source of all things. You're moving from that place, which is going to take care of you. You're going to be in the right place at the right time, exactly when you need to be there. And you had no idea about it. You were just moved there by spirit, but only because you were living in a place of love and openness and like in a belief, a deep-rooted belief that life is good and that you deserve good things.
What up, fam? Welcome to another episode of Life Beyond the Game. Oh, if you're tuning in, I'm just so grateful that you're taking the time to listen to this show, wherever you heard about it, wherever you found out about it. If you've been listening to it since the beginning, if you've been on this journey with me for the last few years, I'm just so grateful for all of you. And I'm just so blown away how this podcast is just expanding, reaching more people. It's really blown my mind how fast it's growing and how impactful it is. And it's just, I'm so proud of myself I've started this podcasting journey 3 years ago, and all of that practice and trial and error and learning and all the over 150 conversations I've had with people has added so much value to my life. And I think it's all really showing up and alchemizing into the impact that this show's starting to have. And so that really includes all of you. And that's the reason why. And I'm just so grateful that you guys are listening, supporting, sharing, and yeah, just deeply honored. I hope you're getting value, as much value as I am out of these conversations. Thank you. Today's guest is Eben Britton. I've been trying to get Eben, record a podcast with him for, I think, a couple of years now, maybe at least a year. And we talk about like really grateful for the timing because it was perfect. Of course it was perfect. And Eben is another thing that's special about this episode is I love the opportunity to sit down with a fellow offensive lineman, someone who really had the mindset of a killer, someone that just like was so focused on just really being just a brutal force on the field. I would have loved to be teammates with Eb because just the man he is, and I know we would have gotten along in the locker room. But now we're even more deeply connected. Lost my words. Even more deeply connected now because we share this healing journey, the transition and the challenges that we face as athletes, as elite athletes. It's propelled Eb and myself on this deeper journey of self-discovery and healing. And I'm really, really grateful for this man because as you'll soon find out, like his ability to speak directly to the heart and to do it in such a grounded way and impactful way. Every word that he speaks is just so, it reverberates with so much power. And so I'm really grateful to have Eb on. Eb's doing big things in the world, sharing his heart and just reaching deeper levels of embodiment within the message that he carries and the journey that he's been on. Shares a lot about his challenges through his career. He's played with a bunch of injuries. And we talk about a wide variety of things after that. It's just a really, really all-around good episode. I know you guys are going to absolutely love it. If you guys feel connected, Eb has his own podcast, the Ebb and Flow. He does yoga flows and retreats and all this really good juiciness. I think this is the start of a really strong friendship with Eb, and really looking forward to the potentialities that can arise in collaboration with Eb into the future because we're on very similar paths. Hope you guys enjoy this episode with Eben Britton. Before we get started, I want to just let you know how excited I am about this vision that I had 3 years ago that's continued to unfold. And it's taught me so much about who I am and what I'm here to do. And it's really focused around building the foundation for a community that is going to have long and lasting impact in the world. I've been facilitating these whitewater rafting nature expeditions the last couple of years and really learning a ton about what it takes to build community and who I desire to build community with and surround myself with. And all of those lessons and growth and learnings and experiences have all alchemized in this beautiful offering that's come into life in a really incredible way. I just can't. I'm blown away by the magnetism that's taking place and the people that are being called into the sphere of this community and this energy. And who we're calling in is high impact leaders, entrepreneurs, influential visionaries, change makers. Those people who have a vision of a more beautiful world and have the ability to really facilitate change through the impact that they have, through the businesses that they're creating, through the teams that they lead, and the relationships and networks that they cultivate. And you can't just build community because you want to build community. That's what I've learned. The way to build community, like I found out and connect with my football journey, these unbreakable bonds with my teammates in the locker room, is the experiential process, the pursuit of something greater than the self that allows the athlete, the team athlete, the football player to push themselves past their own limitations. And so I'm recreating that energy of those unbreakable bonds to serve high impact leaders and change makers. And the way we are facilitating this is through an experiential process, a rite of passage out in the wilderness on a whitewater rafting expedition. Got 2 retreats going this summer, one in June, one in August. And we're going to use these rite of passage experiences to build the foundation for a community that's going to have long and lasting impact well into the future. And there's a lot of really cool visions coming online. Probably too much to share here, but if you feel called, if there's something like you don't know why, how, what I'm even talking about, but you feel something in your heart, you want to learn more, check out the link in the show notes or go to theheartcollective.com. That's HART, theheartcollective.com. You can fill out an application. I don't know when this episode is going to go live. We might be already on the wait list. May 29th. So check it out. Community might already be filled, but we might be looking to fill those last few spots. And so if you feel called, make sure you apply, check it out, reach out to me directly. And I hope you enjoy this episode as much as I did, having the time to sit down with Eb and work out with him beforehand and just connect with this brother, man. Deep brotherhood. I'm excited to see where this man takes his life and the people that he impacts, the people that he's already impacting. I love you all. Enjoy the episode. Oh, man. Eben?
Eben.
Dude, sorry, like I keep doing
flow.
That, huh?
It's all good, man.
Eben.
That's how it looks on paper. But think ebb and flow.
Ebb and flow. Ebb and flow, dude. This has been a long time coming. I'm so stoked to drop in with you, bro.
Me too, man. Thanks for having me, bro.
Yeah, dude.
Perfect timing.
I know. Especially with the studio. Shout out to Squatch and the radio room for letting me use it.
Yeah, I mean, if we tried to do the pod when we first met
online, it would have been.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been as cool.
I know, totally. We got to move our bodies. We got to breathe a little bit, and now we're pressing record. And 2 offensive linemen getting in the same room, man.
It's the best.
Best, man.
Nothing better. Don't get to do it that often these days.
I know. There's a special bond between the offensive line.
1,000%, man. You could be decades apart, teams apart, doesn't matter. You meet a fellow O-lineman out in the world, it's like brothers for life.
I know, dude. It's like a fraternity that's unspoken.
Totally.
It's the best, man.
1,000%. So it's a really beautiful brotherhood that we have. And I think that on the basis of your show, man, I think it's really important that we have things that are put on by the NFLPA, but they feel so disconnected. I think it's really important for us NFL guys, O-linemen in particular, to make a more conscious effort to connect with each other and come together.
Yeah.
Maybe it's something we can do.
That's what I'm speaking about.
Calling all the O-linemen, man.
Do an O-line program.
Let's do an O-line gathering. Let's do an O-line trip, man.
Dude, that sounds fucking epic.
Yeah, do all the stuff we love to do. Breathe, move, ice tubs, great food.
We can get some sleds out there and maybe push those around.
Oh, 1,000%.
See if we still got it.
Totally, bro. And just be together.
Yeah.
Roar and laugh and enjoy that experience that very few people on the planet get to experience.
That's
being this large man who's a trained killer, who's also and this is across the board, let's be real, the most intelligent, intellectually and emotionally guys on an NFL football team. I mean, let's be real about it.
Speak on it.
Come on now.
I couldn't agree more, man. I can feel that, like just the energy of what it would feel like to be around a bunch of the guys again in like a healthy locker room environment.
I'm feeling it. I'm getting chills up my left side, my masculine side. I'm getting chills up my left side. Just sitting here with you, man, and talking about that and thinking about that. I think that's something we should definitely put together, and it would be it's very needed for me. I know I need it because when I spend time with dudes, I spend a lot of time around women. Just what I do, teaching yoga, and there's a studio I teach at regularly. It's mostly female teachers. You know, I've got a daughter. I'm surrounded by a lot of female energy.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nice to connect with men in a way that we don't get to do it that often.
I feel like I've gone to a few men's retreats and there's something really powerful, and I understand the safety when you're around that healthy masculine energy and it's just men, and like me showing up and being able to like sink into that and feel safe and comfortable to be vulnerable. I can only imagine, you know, just understanding where women are at and like how women desire to be around that, but so do men. How important it is to create those spaces for men to feel safe, held, and let the walls down. And we didn't have that in football. It's definitely not. It's kind of the opposite environment.
Yeah. In that life, because it was absolutely another life ago, you had your guys, you know, they were the guys you were always hanging out, going to their house after practice, or, you know, driving to the facility together before taking the trip for the away game.
Who were some of your guys when you were playing?
When I was in Jacksonville, it was Eugene Monroe, who we were drafted together. He was first round, I was second round.
That's a special bond.
Yeah, he was
drafted together.
Rookie year, man.
Wow.
Starting game one, left tackle, right tackle, both rookies. First time in NFL history since like the 70s. We were playing the Colts, Dwight Freeney and Mathis.
Oh, they were killers back then, dude.
Gave up 0 sacks.
Woo!
Huh? I mean, that's
dude.
The real ones know what the fuck that's all about.
Welcome to the NFL.
Yeah, dude. I mean, talk about fastest 2 DNs on turf at that time. This is 2009.
Yeah. Yeah, these are the guys that would give monsters. Tackles like nightmares because of their speed, and then speed to power, and then be able to like counter move.
The spin move.
Oh, man.
They literally teleport from one spot to another. Eugene Ooch, I don't want to go too far down the football rabbit hole because we'll just end up talking X's and O's all day. You know?
We'll get it. It's a long form content, so we'll be good.
Yeah, we don't get to do that much. And it's funny, like you said, when we were moving over here earlier from the workout, you said, when I come into contact with guys who really know football and who played and are, brothers in arms, as it were, you always end up just talking about football, and we never talk about football anymore.
Yeah, it feels good.
No, it does. It's fun.
About it.
It's fun to talk about it with people. Like, you get it, dude.
Yeah.
You understand what it is to put your hand in the dirt and line up across from a 350-pound raging bull. You know?
Yeah. Not a lot of people know what that's like.
Yeah. Or one of the best athletes on the planet, you know, and go literally hand-to-hand combat with that dude for 90 minutes.
Yeah. Everything that has to go into it too to get to that point.
60 minutes, excuse me. Yeah, dude. So, but those guys, Eugene, Uche was my right guard. Vinny Manawai, God rest his soul, rest in peace, Vinny. He passed away a few years ago. A lot of guys have passed away too, man.
What's going on with that? Brain stuff?
Brain stuff.
Overall health, high
heart
inflammation stuff.
Inflammation stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, Uche passed away too. Oh my God, I totally forgot about that. My brother Uch, started with him for 4 years in Jax, passed away a couple months ago.
What happened to him?
Passed away in his sleep, heart issues.
What? How old? In his
38.
30s? Wow.
I'm 35. He was a little older than me. 38 years old, dude. Like, what?
Yeah. How long did he play for?
He played, he was a year or two older than me, and he might have left about the same time as me. So 8 or 9 years probably.
Yeah, and obviously
played
just a freak
6.
thing. Was he healthier or overweight still?
I don't know. I don't know enough. I had been in contact with Ooch. We had done some pods and connected a little bit, and really, really heartbreaking. I think there's, I can't really speak on it, but
tell us what it took to play in the NFL. What people
everything took everything. Took everything, man. When I was 8 years old, summertime, up at my grandparents' house in Connecticut, watching the news, morning news, and clips of the Jets and the Giants in training camp came on. In that moment, the seed was planted. That's what I want to do when I grow up. Be one of those guys. Be a gladiator, be a warrior. And mom would never let me play. Finally, my freshman year of high school, with the help of my dad, I convinced her to let me play.
Why didn't she want you to play?
I'd get hurt.
Yeah, she was just scared about the physical injuries.
Yeah, and I mean, which is so funny because we're definitely descended from Vikings who were all about violence and chaos. And she's now a bigger football fan than I have ever been, which is hilarious. Just injuries, I guess. My mom also started taking me to yoga when I was 10 years old.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, my mom is a master body worker, healer, yogini, yoga therapist, intuitive healer. Just the most masterfully, ingeniously intuitive healer I've ever come into contact with.
That's fascinating.
When I was first starting to play football, and even before that, actually, because I was going through growth spurts like crazy. In middle school, I grew a foot in about a year from the end of 6th grade, or from the beginning of 6th grade to the start of 7th grade. I'd grown about 12 inches. And I was so fucked up, dude.
I can only imagine a giraffe.
Check out how fast how this is, looking back, this is such a clear indicator of the growth I was going through. I tried out for this Little League baseball league. I did the tryout, was on fire, could not miss, throwing balls on a line from right field to the catcher's mound, to home plate, just crushing it, right? By the time I was on a team and playing, I couldn't fucking even touch the ball batting. I could barely catch. I couldn't do anything because my hand-eye coordination was so off.
How did that make you feel? You're just like, what the fuck?
It was devastating, dude. I hated it.
Is it going to be like this forever?
Yeah, I was so devastated. And we had just moved to California. I was born in New York City. We lived in Brooklyn till I was 10. So finished elementary school, 5th grade in New York City and Brooklyn. And then my mom moved my brother and I to LA, to Burbank, going into middle school. This was probably in 6th grade around when this tryout happened, and then the season started, and I was so depressed, dude. I was like chubby and awkward and I was so upset that we had moved 3,000 miles across the country, away from my dad and away from my grandparents and away from every friend I ever knew. My entire life, we moved across country, which was difficult in its own right. And then I'm starting to go through puberty and growing and doing all this, and I couldn't even hit a baseball anymore.
Wow.
It was just crushing. Yeah, it was like sports. I mean, sports were my life. There's a lot of alcoholism in my family.
Why did you guys move away from?
Mom got a big job, and also I think it was her dream.
Yeah.
She was following her own dream, which is one of the greatest. Then it was extremely difficult and fucking traumatic for me as that child. At 7, my parents got divorced. I made a subconscious decision that I needed to be the alpha male of my household. I needed to take care of everybody. There was a lot of difficulty during that time. Mom was really struggling. Dad was struggling, both doing the best they could. Mom was really descending into her alcoholism. And the home was just, it was chaotic, you know, scary. And there was a lot of good too, obviously. Sure. But this is what really imprints you. You know, when we're talking about the shit that we have to unravel when we become adults, it's not the good stuff that we have to unravel. It's all of the trauma and the chaos and the darkness that we have to come to terms with in order to get to the other side.
Yeah. You know, what I dealt with was a little bit of guilt for thinking I didn't have, like, I had a really amazing childhood on the surface and grew up in a upper middle class neighborhood.
Sure. I would say the same.
Yeah. And then when you start uncovering like, oh shit, there was experiences, events, and just the energy dynamics that were not the healthiest environment.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's all what gets imprinted on your subconscious belief matrix about what life is, how you relate to the world and yourself, and what that looks like. When problems arise, how do you go about solving those problems? In my family, it was really about going to war. We go to war to solve problems, which stopped serving me, you know, a lot way before I recognized that and was able to start making different decisions, you know.
I mean, it served you in a way. I'm sure that had 1,000% for you making it all the way to the pros. And
my whole football career was that. Proving to the world how fucking big and scary and to be feared I was, you know, and I destroyed myself in the process. And fuck yeah, dude, I was always the most violent guy on the field. On tape from my freshman year of high school, from the first football game I ever played in, you put on the tape and I'm the O-line running down the field with the running backs and picking receivers up and knocking people over the pile and burying dudes in the fucking dirt. Like, that was me.
Dude, it would have been so fun to play with you because I was the same way, man.
You almost came to U of A, brother.
I know. That would have been epic in college, too.
Coach Bill, man. Not to fucking blow up your spot. I love you. You know that. But you turned Joe off.
Younger Joe at 17 just wasn't feeling it.
Yeah, younger Joe. It's all good, man.
Yeah.
Coach Bill. I love Coach Bill, though. He was our second O-line coach when I was there, but I absolutely love Coach Bill.
How was U of A? How was, you know, this next step of this dream of playing with the pros and being a gladiator, and then kind of the next step going into college?
Freshman year, I redshirted. And I was really low, man. That freshman year at Arizona was hard, mentally and emotionally.
Why is that?
I had gone from being a starter, the guy, to I'm redshirted, so there's no chance I'm playing. As a freshman, you're waking up at 5 a.m. to go get your lift in at 5:30 before classes start, or whatever, 6 a.m. lifts, you know. Walking to the weight room in the dark. You're just exhausted. You're doing practice. You're doing everything everybody's doing, and then on game day, you're just wearing a jersey on the sidelines. And it was just hard, man, you know? And school was what it was. I've always been a little bit, I've always had this base layer of melancholy, which has been a gift and a curse, you know? Which I think when I'm not aware of it in the moments of my life, because now everything is just this constant study of self, this constant observation of what's going on in here when I come into rooms or when I come into contact with things that trigger anger or sadness or whatever it might be. It's always just like, oh, how interesting is that? And to be there is a miracle in and of itself, to be in that place. However, if I'm not there, and during those times in my life when I wasn't quite there, I think for me especially, you know, you can allow yourself to get low. And especially if it's physically really hard. And it's challenging, man. You know, first time I was 800 miles from home, which isn't far. Arizona was one of the reasons I picked it was I was getting out of LA, getting away from family to be on my own, but I was a close enough flight that if, you know, travel was easy.
Yeah, really close in the grand scheme of where you could have gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I loved the desert. I felt really called to the desert. Also, University of Arizona, I think around my sophomore or junior year of high school, I decided I wanted to major in creative writing. And so U of A was one of the only schools that offered a creative writing program, and they're one of the best in the world.
Writing, why writing?
I fell in love with story. I've always loved storytelling and art. I come from this family of athletes and artists, and writing was just something I did. I have stacks of journals from my freshman year of high school. Writing was always just this really important outlet for me.
Did you get that from your mom?
My father is a painter, artist, and my mom was an award-winning journalist. When we left New York City, she was editor-in-chief of some of the world's utmost fashion magazines.
Wow.
My grandfather, his name's Richard Gaiman. He was one of the most prolific writers in American history. You could check him out. He coined the term Rat Pack and was just like he was one of the most published writers in Playboy history. He was married to my grandmother, Estelle Parsons, who's an Academy Award-winning actress. She won Best Supporting Actress for Bonnie and Clyde in like 1967.
So,
and she's just a force of nature, still on Broadway doing plays. She's 96. I mean,
still crushing it.
She's an absolute savage.
Wow.
So this artistry was always in my blood. And
were you writing for art and creation and like novels and storytelling, or was it more processing and like
a lot of processing? And then I would write stories, like short stories. There was a story I wrote sometime, I think junior or senior year, I wrote a book that never saw the light of day about a young man navigating his way through a chaotic world, which is interesting. And
what was the inspiration for that?
I was reading a lot of Bret Easton Ellis, which he wrote like American Psycho and Rules of Attraction and a handful of books that have been made into movies. And it's very racy writing usually about college age kids doing shit that's, not great. And it was just like, that's where I was at that time. Yeah. I was very interested in, well, like any young teenager turning into a young man, I was very interested in women and sex and,
So it was a little edgy, you wrote all that.
A little edgy and drugs and interested in just like, this sort of wild lifestyle.
Yeah. Talk about the importance writing has had on your life, because writing is one thing that has completely shifted my life. But I had this story, like I think most people do, that I'm not a good writer and I would judge myself. I couldn't even go to my journal because I was so judgmental. What I did to start keeping a journal was I would read books and I would just write quotes from other people in my journal. And I would never, like as soon as I started writing, I thought I would judge myself.
Interesting.
And I wanted to shift that story. So when I first walked away from the NFL and I started my blog, I actually sat down to do some writing and judged myself so much that I ended up going to like video blogging. And in that moment, I realized I thought it would be impossible to ever write a book. And in that moment, I knew I wanted to attempt to write a book so I could shift that story. And I'm working on a book now, and being able to journal has been such a profound process to understand the deeper levels of myself and just communicating and externally processing. And so I think that's something I want to highlight, someone that has been a writer your whole life, and just talk about the power and impact, because I think that's one tool. If everybody implemented, we'd just be a lot healthier place.
It's a great point, dude. And good for you on that process. I always think that's interesting when people say I'm not a good writer, or I don't know how to write a book. Or I published my first book last year called The Ebb and Flow: Basic Tools to Transform Your Life, which is basically my story through football, coming out of that life mentally, physically, emotionally destroyed, and the steps I took to put myself back together. I'll send you a copy of that.
I would love to read it.
Yeah, dude, I'll send you a copy. It's also audiobook. I did that as well.
You read it?
Yeah.
I mean, you got an amazing voice.
Thanks, brother.
Am I coming through all right on you?
You sound great.
Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
you sound good.
Sure. I wanted to check before we get too deep into it.
No, I know. No, you sound good.
Okay.
Say something.
Mic check, 1 2 1 2.
Are you over there on the right?
I think you only need the one recording.
Okay.
I think we're good.
Yeah, dude. I think we're good.
Apologies.
You sound great.
Okay. Apologies, everybody listening. So
I
back to the
always
writing.
love the technical stuff.
Oh man, so I recorded a podcast. This is why I did this, because I recorded a podcast, press record, did 2.5 hours, got up, and it was no longer recording.
I've done it, bro.
Oh, dude, my worst nightmare.
I have to stop doing podcasts I had to stop for a month after that because I was so pissed off.
Luckily, I only lost the last 10 minutes of the show.
Thank God, dude. I've lost an entire episode.
That's my nightmare.
It's the worst feeling because you're catching this lightning in a bottle.
Yeah.
You know?
Totally.
And it's this stream of consciousness. And even if you go and do the pod again,
it's not going to be the same.
You're never going to get the same convo.
Totally.
Yeah. So
appreciate everybody's patience with that. Back to writing.
Guys, one of the interesting opportunities to navigate when you're a podcaster.
Mm-hmm.
So writing, I always think it's interesting when people say I'm not a good writer. For me, it's always just been, what's in here? What's happening in here? What are the thoughts? What are the words? What's the self-talk like that's going on inside here, and putting that on paper? And one of the things that's so profound about writing is by getting this stuff onto a page, you disconnect yourself from it in this way where you get to have this third person perspective about what's going on inside of your head, the stories you're telling yourself, situations, how they're looking, what is your perspective on the world? And you get to look at that without any outside influence, and you really get to sit and be with it and recognize what's true and what is an illusion. And whatever it is that you're going through. And you can do this with situations you're experiencing in your relationships with other people, your romantic relationships or professional relationships or relationship with yourself or what's happening inside of you or something you're navigating currently, whatever the story might be that's going on, you just put that on paper and it allows you this opportunity to see what's real. And that's such a profound thing because we get so wrapped up in our stories. We get so wrapped up and we personalize things and it's about us. Why did that person say that to me? Why'd they say that? Why are they doing this to me? All of those things. And then you start to write out the whole storyline and you get to see what's real, like I said. And it was the biggest, one of the most transformative things I've ever done. And going back to what we started this podcast with about men being around men and getting to be vulnerable and connect with each other on a deeper level than the news, weather, sports that typically I think men are accustomed to communicating within. One of the most transformative experiences in my life, it was about 2016, I'd hit complete rock bottom, which culminated in me screaming into the phone at my wife at the time, I'm going to kill myself or I'm going to kill somebody. As I got on the on-ramp to get on the 170 to drive out to Chatsworth to work at the CBD company I had started. By the time I got to the office, sat down in my chair, I'm choked with shame and guilt and all of my shit and not knowing what to do. All of the escape valves, none of them were working anymore. None of them were helping me escape anymore. The alcohol, the weed, the porn, the fucking 2.5 hours at the weight room. It wasn't getting me out of it anymore. I was being crushed by the tidal wave of the reality of my life. So I get a call from my mom. God bless my wife. She goes to my mom's house, talks to my mom, and she's in tears and just like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do with Eb. And mom calls me up. I knew she knew what was going on. She's like, Eb, how you doing? Could barely get out any words out. I'm so choked with fucking shit. And she says, Eb, why don't you come over for dinner? Come to dinner. And let's just talk about what's going on. I said, all right, Mom. So I go to dinner. It's my mom. It's my Aunt Martha, my mom's twin sister. It's my brother Gus. They're sitting down. They just start to talk to me about, hey, Eb, we come from this family that's heavily affected by the disease of alcoholism. And the good news is there are tools. There are tools for this. And Gus, my brother, had been going to Al-Anon, which is a 12-step program. Al-Anon and AA. Al-Anon is for families of alcoholics. AA is for people who have a really, who are alcoholics, who have a hard time with alcohol, obviously. I had grown up going to AA meetings. My mom got sober, God bless her. She's been sober about 25 years now.
You would go to meetings with her?
With her. She'd take us. She would just take
kind
us.
of flow around the meeting?
Sometimes there was a playroom that was on the side. Sometimes just sit there in the fucking meeting, dude.
What'd you think of it back then? Like the sacred circle and the kind of the process, because that's a powerful modality.
Very powerful. Very powerful. And it was, for me at that time, it was a place where, it's a good question. What did I think about it then? I don't know. It was just where I was, and it was a powerful thing. Maybe it's how I learned to do what I do now. It was the first place where I heard people just sharing about what the fuck was going on inside of them. So I go with my brother to this Al-Anon meeting. It's an all men's meeting, and go there. It's a Friday morning. I walk in, and I just feel totally cloaked in darkness and shut down and could barely breathe. And I sit there, and the first guy shares, the leader shares, and he just it sounds like he's unpacking my life. He starts telling my childhood story. And it just burst me open. And I spent the next hour in tears, just my heart opening up, was able to take a deep breath for the first time in maybe my entire life, and walked out of that room, sun's beaming through the clouds. I have some hope and maybe a little faith that we can get better.
Wow.
That life could be better.
What was the feeling going to that experience? Because someone in your state, I'm sure there was a lot of resistance, like, a little bit of a victim mindset, not wanting to go to this thing that everybody's like, hey, go, because there's, alcoholism, and there's usually a lot of resistance to going to things like that. What were you feeling before?
Well, I was so broken down. I was on my knees, surrendered.
Do anything.
I'm like, sure.
Yeah.
But I had to get there before I could do that.
Yeah.
I couldn't go to that meeting before that.
Yeah, 80% down the darkness is, you're like, I still got a little bit further to go.
Nah, whatever,
And so when you heard someone else share their story and you saw yourself in their story, it was this mirror experience. Somebody else's vulnerability was able for you to soften. And then was it just floodgates open? All that energy and tension that you're feeling, can't speak, that shame, guilt, fear, did it break through and come out? Like, how did you process it?
I ended up sharing that day. Didn't know exactly what to say even, but I just shared where I was at, and that I was grateful to be in that room, to have found my way to that room, and grateful for everyone's honesty and truth and the light and the love that they had been able to share.
It's so powerful that all these wide variety of healing modalities, especially nowadays, to help people that are in these positions, and the simplicity and the power of being listened to and held in the space of feeling safe to be like, okay, I can actually get this off my chest, and how profound that was to shift just that little bit to propel you on a journey.
Big time, man. Big time. That led me to meditation, to prayer, more therapy, plant medicine, back to yoga, all the stuff. That was like the opening ceremony.
And how far after your career was this? 2016?
This is 2 years after. So this is 2014 was my last year.
And was that a big part of this darkness that you were feeling? Was the loss of identity from football?
Oh, 1,000%. I had no idea how to relate to anybody in my life outside of football, relate to myself. I didn't know how to talk to anyone. And this, Joe, I think I heard one of your clips. You also throughout my football career, I had this idea, I'm not really this. I'm not just a football player. I'm a writer, dude. I'm going to be a writer when I'm done playing. You know, I'm an artist. So even with that, when I came out of football, it was so unavoidable to recognize that I had spent my entire life relating to people through this prism of being this superstar athlete. You know, every conversation I had, Eb, what do you want for dinner? Eb, what do you want to do after the game? Eb, what should we do here? Eb, you need anything? Eb, coming to the game? You know, let Eb be. He needs to prepare for the game. Or Eb's resting now. He just had a game. All of those things. Like that was the atmosphere of my life, you know, for 15 years.
Let's take it back before the transition and into your career, and then we could lead up into the process that you went through, because that's really powerful. But to paint the picture of the NFL career, I think we talked about before we got on the show, like everybody really wants to have, I think that number is like a 10-year career, and then I'll start thinking about retirement. And things shift pretty quickly, especially stuff that is, you know, out of your control. So talk about your career, getting drafted, playing your rookie year, and I'm assuming at that point you're like, okay, I'm fucking arrived. My first game, rookie year, I'm gonna have this 10-year career and just crush it. And all the things are on the table, you know, Pro Bowls, and just continue to improve and helping this team be better. So talk about the journey of football and how your career turned out.
Oy. It's one of my least favorite things to talk about, just because I find it the least interesting. And I recognize it's also, you know, it was absolutely amazing as well. I was telling you about, so I had a great rookie year. Second year, last weight workout before we took that break before training camp. We're doing these Kaiser squats, putting thousands of pounds of pressure on our back and dropping down and exploding up and doing this shit. And the second set of that, I go down, it ruptured my disc, L5S1. I wasn't setting my core. Completely my fault. You know, I wasn't conscious. I wasn't focused. And didn't really know what happened. And it felt like this tube of toothpaste just squirted into the top of my butt cheek.
That's vivid. I can feel that. Oof.
Yeah. I came out of the machine, felt like I'd been ripped in half and my torso was put on backwards, and went out to run sprints. Of course, I'm a team I'm a leader of the team. I'd had a stellar rookie year, great OTAs, like top of my game, dude. Being the player that everybody told me I could be, you know? And we go out to run sprints. I end up tearing my hamstring because I'm pushing myself and I don't know what happened, you know, just like.
You didn't think did you tell the trainers or anything? You just tried to push through it?
I didn't, it was so strange. It was such a strange sensation that I was like, I know there's no muscular damage here, but something is wrong. Something is very wrong here. So I pull my hamstring during the sprints, and this is the last workout, dude. It's like I'm about to go on vacation and like chill they were giving us an absurdly short amount of, it was like 2 weeks or something.
Yeah.
Before training camp. So I go into the training room about my hamstring. But I tell them, I'm like, there's something else going on here. Something else is wrong. So they do these tests. And they're like, oh, it looks like you like ruptured your disc. So they do the sciatic tests and all this stuff. I lay it down on the table. They lift my leg up, keep it straight, lift it up. Couldn't go very high at all. It's fucking excruciating sciatic nerve pain. They went down into my right big toes. So go off for vacation. They give me a little protocol, stretching, that type of stuff. Come back for training camp, and I'm a shell of the player that I was when I left. And every coaches are like, Eb, are you okay? What's going on? I'm like, well, I fucking herniated this disc and we're doing everything we can. I'm up at 5 a.m. in the training room by 5:30, doing hot and cold tub and stem and massage and dry needling and like every fucking modality on the planet, and a steady dose of anti-inflammatories. Like I think I was taking Indocin or something at the time. What was your pill of choice?
I did some of that. Did some of the
Cataflam?
No, I never did that. What's the one for like old people?
Celebrex?
Celebrex. And then
Yeah, that one was banned at the Jacksonville because it was giving people heart attacks.
Oh, motherfucker. I'm glad I survived.
Yeah, we got to choose between Cataflam and Indocin. Indocin, if you don't eat with it, it'll fucking make your stomach bleed and you'll shit blood.
Yeah, like literally realizing now these anti-inflammatories, how terrible they are for the stomach lining. I'm still recovering from that.
Totally, dude.
And we pop them like candy. Like even before pain pills, it's like
daily regimen.
Let's do some anti-inflammatory medications, never telling us how bad they are for us.
Daily regimen, dude. Yeah. You're taking those every day. It's crazy.
Through the whole season.
Yeah.
And all the guys were doing it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Taking it just to sit in a fucking meeting room, you're taking a pill. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just so you could sit upright and not be in pain. It's insanity when you think back on it. So I come back. I'm a shell of the player I was. Still starting at right tackle. I'm wearing like a back brace. I'm popping pills. I'm just doing anything I can to get out on the field. My entire mindset is I'm a warrior. I'll literally die on that football field. So I'm in this insane regimen throughout the season. About week 7, week 8, we're in Kansas City playing the Chiefs. I'm starting at right tackle. Midway through the second quarter, it's an outside zone. KC's in this 3-4 defense, so I got a head up. He was either a 5 or a 4-eye. I'm taking a step to my right, punching through his outside shoulder, working up to the linebacker. The guard's coming to take over that D end. I get up on the linebacker. This wave of bodies tangles up my legs. We all go to the ground. I land on my elbow at a right angle, feel something go, get up, can't move my arm. My shoulder's dislocated, come out of the socket. I pop it back in. We finish the drive, score a touchdown. I come out, we're on the sideline. I go to my favorite trainer, Justin. I say, yo, bro, I need a shoulder sling ASAP, or a shoulder harness ASAP, because we're about to get on the field for a 2-minute drill, and I just dislocated my shoulder. He's just looking at me like, should I get the team doc? I'm like, fuck no, hurry up. Let's go. Get the harness. I got to get back out there. He's like, okay. God bless him for respecting me in that moment.
Just do it. Yeah, totally.
Throw the shoulder pads off. And like I told you earlier, it was a common injury for me because my shoulder had been subluxating since my sophomore year of high school, which is it pops out, pops back in, which is excruciatingly painful in and of itself. The dislocation was more awkward than painful. And, I just fucking popped it right back in. So throw the pads off, get the harness on. It's like a NASCAR wheel change, throwing my pads back on, grabbing my helmet. We're running on the field for this 2-minute drill. In Kansas City, dude, you've played there, right?
Oh,
fucking gnarly.
Yeah, nuts.
It's the most intense atmosphere I've ever played in.
Yeah, we'll be this far away, and if it's like a no huddle 2 minutes, you can't literally get to read the person's lips or have sign language.
Unbelievable atmosphere, dude.
Crazy.
So I think it was the second play of the drive. I'm pass blocking Mike Vrabel, go to punch. He swipes my arm, comes down out of the socket again. So that's in the harness now. I can't get it back in. I'm running off the field, tapping my helmet. My backup's running on. Takes the team doctors 5 minutes to get my shoulder back in the socket on the bench. It finally grinds back in. I feel it every millimeter of the way grinding in. They're like, Eb, all right, you're done for the day. Let's get you in. Let's, get you showered in some sweats. We'll give you some meds for the pain and, come back out to watch halftime. I was like, all right. In my head, I'm like, I'll be ready for Dallas next week. No worries, So I'm watching the rest of that game from the sideline, have a massive chew in, thinking to myself, yeah, I'll be good to go next week. No big deal. I go in After the game, talked to the team doctor. He says, Eb, I can't let you play. We're going to put you on IR. You need to have surgery immediately. I couldn't in good conscience let you play. And I just it was the first time in my life that I had been unable to play because of an injury. I never missed a game either, my entire football career, high school, college.
That warrior mindset too. Like,
yeah.
So how did you process that?
Burst into tears, called my mom, called my girlfriend, was just like, we got to have surgery, can't play anymore. What the fuck?
How did you process that year on IR? Because that's something I don't think is talked about enough. I remember when I blew my knee out week 4, when you go on IR, it's like you don't feel like you're a part of the team.
Oh yeah, you're almost exiled.
Yeah.
I'd come in, then it became, though, just to go back to the first question, it ended up, I felt relieved because I was so worn out from dealing with my back. So having the shoulder injury, it gave me some time.
Yeah, it's like, okay, I literally can't play, so now it's giving me permission to rest.
Yeah, so it was the silver lining of that injury. However, I got the shoulder surgery, went down to Alabama, Dr. Andrews zipped me up, did a great job. My right shoulder is probably better than my left at this stage.
Yeah, same with my knees. Thank you, Dr. Andrews. He did my knee as well.
Did he?
Yeah.
He's a great dude, Dr. Andrews. Amazing guy. So didn't ever really get the back taken care of, was still like, I'd gotten an epidural at this point. I was able to rest it, which took a lot of strain off of it and wasn't constantly compressing my spine, for 3 hours a day. But I didn't address it. We didn't know the severity of it, was the truth. That disc was completely ruptured. And if you don't quite know, your discs are they're like these jelly donuts. And the fluid that's in those discs, if it comes out of the disc, it's super toxic and it will burn the nerves. So my disc was ruptured and that ooze was spilling out onto my sciatic nerve. I had excruciating sciatic nerve pain, dude. Running down my right leg. You played 8 games on this? Yeah.
Holy fuck.
Running down my right leg. Fucking excruciating. Like, I'd be driving and I'd have blinding pain. I'd have to pull over.
Wow.
And and lie down in the back seat. This was how fucked up that was. But we didn't really know that. So we were doing epidurals and we'll stretch. Stretching was excruciating. It was mind-bogglingly painful. So the rest helped. The shoulder got better. Went into the lockout the next year. Was the lockout your rookie year?
That was my rookie year, yeah.
Wow, dude. So we go into the lockout. So I went back to the University of Arizona, finished my degree because I left early, which was great. I got to do rehab with my old college trainers. Got to go to school and just do school and not football, which was fucking
refreshing.
So fun.
Yeah.
I was like, man, I could have done a lot more of this college shit if I wasn't playing football.
Yeah.
Come back, we're right into training camp. Shoulder's good, back's not. This is my 3rd year with the Jags. We're in full pads. I'm starting at right tackle. I'd go maybe 3 plays of a series and come out and I'd be on the ground with one knee in the dirt, just in pain because my sciatic was so bad. My right leg would be going numb. Couldn't feel my right foot on the floor. So about a week into training camp, Coach Jack Del Rio, God bless him, shout out, love Coach Jack. He goes, Eb, we got to have you full capacity this year, man. I want you to just go get surgery. He had back surgery. It was an injury he dealt with as a player. He's like, enough putting these Band-Aids on it with the epidurals are not helping. You got to go just have the surgery, dude, so we can get you back. We need you this year. I was like, okay. And so I flew up to North Carolina, had this back surgery done, discectomy, went into surgery, came out of surgery, man. It was like waking up in heaven. Like somebody had pulled the piece of glass out of the electrical circuit board of my body. Like the pain was gone. And it was just like, I was in tears.
Wow. Immediately.
Yeah, well, for me, when you really look at it and you're in chronic pain like that, which is something you learn as you start to unravel all of your shit. For me, I was 18 months in fight or flight, constantly pumping stress hormones, adrenaline and cortisol. My nervous system was like this, zzz, all day for 18 months, over a year and a half, you know? And all of a sudden that thing was taken out, and the doctor said, man, when I got in there, I couldn't tell the difference between the disc and the nerve. They were so mashed together. And so he cut that little piece of the disc off, cleaned it out, and he said, through the MRIs, by some miracle of God, truly, the disc was intact, and it had actually toughened up. So it had become like a retread tire, basically. So I hadn't lost that gap.
So they didn't need to do too much actual work.
They just shaved the disc off of that nerve, and it was magical. Wow. So come back. The guy who was playing right tackle, there had been some adjustments in the lineup. Guy who was playing right tackle he was doing a good job. We didn't have a left guard, so they asked me to move to left guard. My O-line coach was like, Eb, when I was evaluating you coming out of college, man, you were a fucking all-pro left guard. Said, all right, fuck it. He's like, you're an athlete. You're going to be in there with guys who aren't as quick as you. You're a violent player. I think it's going to be a great fit. Moved to left guard. Felt like this is home. Felt like this is where I was meant to play. Playing stellar football. Best football of my life. Starting at left guard. 11 weeks after surgery. So this is like week 5 or 6. We're in Pittsburgh. I wake up in the hotel and my back is completely spasmed. I can barely get out of bed.
On game day?
On game day.
Wow.
Sunday morning. I have to shuffle to the bathroom. I sit down on the toilet, like, gotta like brace on the fucking kitchen. I'm like, what is going on, dude? What is happening here? My back is completely seized. I'm like, man, no worries. I'll pop the pills. I'll get warmed up. I'll be good to go by game time, right? We get to Heinz Field, go immediately into the training room, get on the table, Justin, hot pack, Theragun, stem machine, working it out, opening it up. After about 45 minutes, I go to push myself up off the table, can barely get up off the table because my back is completely seized. And it's like that. You know that. Have you ever had back stuff?
Yeah.
Where you're like, like you're like, you literally like everything is like that, you know?
Mm.
I shuffle my way to my locker, lie down on the floor. I'm going to do some windshield wipers, like spine twists, just to, I'm committed. I'm going to play. I'm going to start, you know? I close my eyes. I open my eyes. There's head coach, offensive coordinator, O-line coach looking down on me, and they say, Eb, you going to be able to go today? I'm like, yeah. I tried to get up, couldn't get up off the floor. I'm like, Eb, all right, you're just going to take a break today. You're going to take a rest. Maybe you came back too fast, you know, where you're overworked, you know, whatever it is, just take a rest, dude. Like, okay. So the next week I get, I'm not practicing. They're just like, hey, maybe we overworked it. You came out of surgery, fucking balls to the wall. You know, you worked your ass off. You're playing great. Let's just give you a rest. Oh, okay. So the idea was take that 1 week off, come back the next week, be starting again. Put me on like a steroid pack or whatever the fuck that, you know, like one of these things that God knows what it's actually supposed to do, but it's part of the protocol.
Yeah.
You know? I'm doing like bike and lifting weights and just kind of keeping myself loose. But the back wasn't getting any worse, but it wasn't really getting better. So another week, we get an MRI done. There's nothing really there. I was halfway expecting, like, did I crack my hip? Did something happen? What's going on? I couldn't figure it out.
It's got to be something in there.
Something's going on,
Yeah.
you know? Nothing. The MRI is totally clear. There's nothing wrong structurally. There's no injuries. There's nothing going on. It's just like this. My back is literally spasming. So that week goes by. Come in for, the Monday team meeting film session. Pull into the players' parking lot. I'm walking into the facility. My back spasms so bad I'm brought to my knees. And a couple teammates helped me walk into the facility. Get to the training room. They're like, all right, man, well, let's get another MRI done tomorrow or sometime, or, looks like we're a little ways out still. So you go and get another MRI done. And there was something like we had done. There were a handful of MRIs. This was either the second, it might have been the third MRI. And there had been nothing in the previous two, So it was like the thing happened in Pittsburgh. The next Monday, I got an MRI. Nothing happened. Nothing was on it. Went a week with the steroid pack and just like light work. Wasn't really getting better. Got another MRI. Nothing was wrong. Came back another week, come in for that team meeting, legs buckle, carried into the training room. Okay, what's going on here? Let's do another MRI. Go in for that MRI. It's like 6 a.m. It was a Friday, 6 a.m. Get this MRI. So I got dropped off there. Someone was going to pick me up, bring me to the 7:30 team meeting. I do the MRI, come out of the MRI, and I'm taken to this weird waiting room. There's nobody in there. And I'm like, what's going on? They're like, oh, you're just waiting for Nurse Nancy's coming. And I'm like, why the fuck is Nurse Nancy coming? Team nurse. Like, why is she coming? Thought one of the trainers was just going to come and pick me up. Why? What are you doing? She's like, oh, well, she needs to talk to you. I'm like, what? Okay. Nurse Nancy comes in. She looks white as a ghost, like she's seen dead people. And she's like, I was like, what's the deal? Where's so-and-so? I'm supposed to be heading back to the facility. And she's like, oh, well, we need to wait here for Dr. What's his name, who was the back specialist at the time, who I really didn't like, didn't have a good relationship with him. And she's like, we're waiting for him. We're going to admit you to the hospital. I'm like, the fuck? Why are you going to admit me to the hospital? Makes no sense to me. So now I'm starting to get upset and pissed off. So this guy comes, he says, Eb, there's an infection in your disc. And we're going to need to admit you to the hospital, and we got to run some tests and see what bacteria. You're going to have to go on antibiotics, and, we'll see if you ever play again. I literally said, dude, go fuck yourself. Get the fuck out of my face. You could do what you want. I'll be admitted to the hospital, whatever you got to do, but I'm never speaking to you again. And so I didn't. I never spoke to that dude again. Other people took over. They admitted me to the hospital.
Was that just the way he presented that information?
That was how he did it.
Yeah.
It might have been even more cold and just like
not giving a zero fucks.
Like Eb, you'll never play football again. That was what he said.
Not understanding the weight of those words.
Yeah.
Mm.
And so I get admitted to the hospital. They want to do a biopsy on the disc, but because I had something to eat already, they were going to have to do it with me wide awake. And that's basically doing a spinal tap, sticking a giant needle into my spine to get a biopsy of the disc to check for an infection. I said, go fuck yourself. You're not doing that. They're like, well, if we don't do it today, we're going to have to do it on Monday and we got to wait all weekend. I'm like, all right, I guess we're waiting all weekend then. I don't give a fuck, dude. I've had like 6 epidurals. I've had back surgery. Now you're telling me I've got an infection in the disc. I don't give a shit, dude. Like, we're going to wait because you're going to put me out for that.
Yeah, son.
Yeah. And the trainers call me. He's like, Eb, this is, we got to get, I'm like, I don't really care, dude. Yeah. Honestly.
Got to draw the line somewhere.
Yeah.
Talk about that, like speaking up for yourself in those situations, because there's such a conflict of interest I find in the NFL between the players and the doctors. And they make it seem like you don't have a say in a lot of the things that they're telling you, and like the second opinions. And they really, the conflict of interest is ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, that's why if you have a good agent, which I think most guys at this stage do, it's just standard protocol to get a second opinion that's outside the team.
Yeah, not involved with the team at all.
Yeah, that's really crucial. It's almost impossible, dude. Not to mention, you're a 21-year-old kid, you know, you're in your 20s. If you haven't been confronted by the business of football yet, you don't even realize that they're just going to tell you what's best for them. And you're so programmed in this warrior mindset. You're like, yes, sir. Cool. Okay, great. Yep. So to even get to the place where you're sensitive enough to realize, no, I need something else, or this is what's best for me, actually. Speaking up for yourself is a non-existent paradigm at that time of life in that realm.
Yeah, I didn't speak up for myself until my final year, when I had known it was going to be my final year, and I went through some medical stuff. I had some ulcers and stress related, and I was just going through a lot of different stuff. And it was because they gave me a lot of anti-inflammatories. I went from not being a starter to becoming a starter with like 4 games left to go in my career, and I had not played the first 12 weeks. So I was really nervous about, okay, my knees are fucked up. And so I went into the training room to say, hey, can I get some pain pills just to finish the season now? I'm going to be starting this week. And worried about if I'm in game shape or if I can still do it. I started losing weight because I saw the light at the end of the tunnel. And like, we're not going to give you pain pills. We'll just give you these 800 milligram ibuprofens. You'll take 3 a day for all week. And then I end up showing up Saturday before we travel to Green Bay, just in like deathly ill. And so I thought it was like a stomach bug or something. End up being like, I think I have ulcers. And they're like, no, you don't have ulcers. So like 3 days go by and it's still not getting better. And I finally have to tell them, like, I want to get a picture taken of my stomach. And then I go to the doctor's office, which is like someone they referred me to, but they work still for the team. And I went in there and I'm like, hey, I want to get a picture. This is what I think happened. I was taking all these ibuprofens. I know they like kill your stomach lining. And he's like, okay, if we put you under, you can't practice for 24 hours. And this was a Wednesday before our game plan for the next week. So he's like, let me go talk to the team. He comes back in. He says, hey, talk to the team. The team said we can't do the procedure and take the pictures because they need you to practice today.
Oh,
and I said, God. What the fuck did you just say to me? I was like, you have an obligation as a doctor to care for me, not the team. So we're going to take these pictures. And like the way he like straightened up, he's like, oh yeah, you're like, it was just like this light bulb went off, like, oh yeah, you're right. And it was the first time I stood up for myself.
Wow, you said that to him.
Yeah. And then really sure enough, two big ass ulcers in my stomach, got the right medication. It was better in a few hours.
Yeah. Wow. That's fucking wild, dude. Yeah. Ulcers from the ibuprofen.
Yeah, and I was going through a big breakup at the time. I was engaged, so there's a lot of personal stuff
life
off
stuff.
the field. Just super stressed, man.
Well, it's all emotional.
Yeah, that was my first connection to like a psychosomatic experience.
Yeah. Every injury I ever experienced was all had an emotional root.
So what was the back root?
Not supporting myself, taking the world on my shoulders. Low backs, all support, money, finance. I was just giving, didn't think anything of my, giving money to anybody who asked for it, basically, and taking care of everybody, and I was drinking heavily. I had made it to the top of the mountain of this thing that I had envisioned for myself since the time I was 8 years old. And it wasn't bringing me the fulfillment that I thought it would. It wasn't filling that God-sized hole inside of myself. And so I was just soothing myself with fucking alcohol and strip clubs and drugs and, whatever I could do to just make myself feel like I had done something.
Talk about a little bit about the responsibility of making money, and then was it you felt responsible to take care of the people closest to you? Was there some guilt around making this money?
For sure.
I mean, it's a huge thing a lot of guys face. I know I did too.
Yeah, and I had basically made more money than anybody in my family had ever made
combined, probably.
Yeah, most likely.
Yeah,
and I had no idea what that meant to have that money. My consciousness couldn't hold that. And so it was just, steak dinners every night, taking care of people coming to town, first class flights, doing everything to the nines, helping family with businesses and business ideas and all this, you know?
Was there like the emotional component of like, did you have an awareness of it, or was it like, I have all this money, so it's on me to kind of make sure that people are taken care of?
I wouldn't, I was happy to do it.
Mm.
I'm a king, dude. I want to take care of my people.
Mm.
You know, then I wasn't rooted in true kinghood, which is much more than just, you know, financial provision for your people. But I was like, I have the means. I'm going to take care of everybody, you know?
Mm.
Like, that's what we're going to do. That's who I am. I want to take care of my people. And it wasn't a second thought. And it was also, I'll make more money. I'll be doing this for 10 years. My next contract's going to be even bigger. You know, that was the thought. And then the next contract didn't come. I just got a couple free agent deals, 1-year deals, you know, because of the injuries in the path that ended up unfolding.
Yeah. Take us back to that. So you got the back surgery. You're going into...
So I'm admitted to the hospital.
Yeah.
So I'm in the hospital now for probably about a week. I talked to this infectious disease guy. He's like, yeah, nothing really came up on the blood. They did the biopsy finally. They released me from the hospital Halloween night. I go home. You know, I get into the fucking house. I'm shuffling to the living room. My back seizes. I collapse on the floor. I'm face down. My mom and my pregnant girlfriend are in tears, like, what do we do? I'm like yelling, fuck it, I'll get myself up, leave me alone. It's just like a horrible scene, you know? So dramatic. Mom's like, I'm going to get the neighbor. I'm like, no, I got it. I'll do it. Finally get myself up, you know, onto the couch, whatever. It was just like, so clearly my back wasn't getting any better. They hadn't found any bacteria or anything yet. No, nothing in the blood. I didn't have any fever. There were no symptoms other than this fucking back seizing up and my legs going numb and giving out. So I don't know, a couple days went by. And I get a call from the infectious disease guy, and he says, Eb, we found out we were going to throw away the culture today of the biopsy because there was nothing in it. And when they went to get it, it was cloudy. And then we found this bacteria. And so it was this super low virulence bacteria, the same bacteria that causes acne, had got into my surgical wound at some point during or after surgery. And it was causing this debilitating back spasm and numbness in my legs. So they put me on 8 weeks of intravenous antibiotics.
8 weeks?
8 weeks.
Is it every day or once a week?
Every day.
IV?
IV in the arm.
Wow.
Nurse would come to my house, inject me. It was a slow push because this shit was fucking toxic, dude. And unfortunately, because of the place of the infection, I couldn't take just pills. It's hard to get circulation to the spine, to the spinal cord, blood flow. So they had to go intravenous. And, yeah, I'd wear a catheter in my arm. They'd change it every few days and inject me. They'd come to my house every day and inject me with this antibiotic for 8 weeks.
That's
every day.
Terrible for your microbiome. Huh?
Oh, yeah, dude.
Reset
definitely.
The whole thing.
Well, then my appendix exploded my last year in Chicago, and I think that was a lot of that.
Because your body was trying to process all that. It was
trying to get rid of it, and it all got lodged in my appendix. And then life shit, mental, emotional shit, you know, all becoming unmanageable, manifested in my appendix rupturing. So, every day, though, I would get up, walk as far as I could. It started, I could barely walk to my kitchen before my legs went out. And I'd have to prop myself up on the sink and wash my hands. And then I'd walk back, lay down. Every day I'd walk as far as I could before my legs gave out. Started walking down the block. Legs would give out. I'd gather my strength, shuffle back home. Next day, I'd walk farther out. I soon got to the point I could walk out to the beach, down and back on the beach, and walk back. So every day, just walking a little bit farther and farther. And then I started to work out again. And thankfully, the antibiotics did work. They did their thing. And then, come back, dude. It's my 4th year. It's my contract year. The team gets sold. I wake up one morning while I'm on IR. And at that point, they wanted me not in the facility at all with the back injury, with the intravenous antibiotics.
You were on IR at this point for your 3rd year too. So it's the 2nd year on IR.
Yeah.
So you're feeling super disconnected from the team at this point.
Just like, I wake up one morning, get my coffee, sit down on the couch, turn on the news, and headline, team is sold, Jack Del Rio fired. And this is like 10, 11, 12 weeks into the season. I'm like, oh my God, So new ownership. The next year they bring in a new head coach, who him and I, for whatever reason, I don't know, we just didn't really get along. I don't know. He didn't like me, or it was strange because he had a back injury and it felt like he should have been more in tune with that experience than he was. But it just seemed like from day one, we were at odds. He didn't like that I chewed tobacco. He'd always have a comment about it, even though he told me a story about how he, eventually he was doing 2 cans a day and eventually quit. And, and I was like, okay, man, cool.
Did he just look at you like damaged goods?
Maybe. Yeah. He might have. 2
years on IR, you can't help this team. So.
I don't know. He just like, we didn't fucking jive. So he was also anyway, that season was abysmal for everyone. We ended up going 2-14. We're worked to the bone. He's one of these guys, like we fucking grinded it through the week in practice.
Ugh, can't
just
do that
brutal.
Shit.
No, you can't.
Yeah.
He's like, we're sitting there at like 1-9, and he's like, don't worry, guys. We're making changes, but we're going to keep working the same way we've been working. And we're like, dude, we're 1-9. What do you mean? Maybe we need to try something new. Like, what are you talking about?
Like not being able to take responsibility for maybe this is why we're 1-9?
Yeah. So I get benched like around week 7 or 8, completely shut it down. I was like, fuck this. I'd wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, take 3 or 4 massive rips off the vaporizer, cannabis, drive into work in a fucking daze, do my, a little bit of treatment, because it was kind of the only thing I enjoyed was like the hot tub and the cold tub and being with the guys. And then I'd sort of like slow motion through the day. By the time that season was over, I'd completely shut it down. I was like, I'm done with football.
And this is your contract year?
Yeah, this is my contract.
So were you hoping to go to a new team, or were you like thinking I'm done with football altogether?
I mean, the initial thought I had was I'm done. I'm done with this shit. Like the business of football is hideous, and I don't think I've got it in me to play anymore. I had a conversation with Brad Meester, who's our starting center, been with the Jags. He ended up being with them for 14 years. Epic guy. Love Brad so much. He was really a guy who taught me what it was to be a pro football player. He'd be in the film room breaking down film at 6 a.m., just like shooting the shit, having fun.
Yeah, dude.
Him and I, and like maybe a couple other guys, but we would always do that. And I talked to Brad after the year, and I was like, man, I don't think I can do this anymore, dude. I was like, how do you do it, man? Like, what's your thought process? And he said, Eb, every year I come back and I think I'm fucking done. I'm never doing this again. And I just come back, I take it one day at a time, and somehow I find my love for the game again. And he's like, hey man, you got an opportunity. Maybe you go somewhere else and you feel totally alive again and love football again and remember why you love this game. Maybe you go somewhere else and you're like, yeah, I'm done. But at least you know. So he's like, I would give it one more team. Give it one more chance. I was like, okay, man, I can do that, So sometime in the off season, I got a couple calls, flew out to Seattle, worked out, they weren't ready to sign me. Flew back to Jacksonville. Like the next day, flew to Chicago. They worked me out, wanted to sign me right away. And there was a lot of conflict happening inside, because I was in tears calling when they were like, Eb, we want to sign you.
What was going through your mind?
I was just like, man, I don't know. I don't know if I can do this, but this is a fucking great opportunity. And I needed money.
You were really at the point of like contemplating being.
Oh yeah. And I just said, okay, great. All right. Going to do it. And that first year in Chicago was really a magical year. I became the sixth man. I was like the swing tackle. And I was playing so well that they carved out this spot for me as a monster tight end. So I'd get 20 to 30 snaps a game as a blocking tight end. And it was just fucking awesome, dude. Like I was balling out, felt really strong, loved the guys on the team. It was such an amazing experience to play for the Bears in Chicago, one of the greatest sports cities in the history of humanity. Truly, like unbelievable atmosphere and city to play in and be in. I was living in the city, and just that year was just magical. Incredible coaching staff, like everybody was in it and just having fun. And it was the year of football that I needed, that I had desired my entire football career, you know? We missed the playoffs by one game. Last game of the year, we're playing Green Bay. It's like NFC North is on the line. Playoffs are on the line. We're up the whole game. It's like 27-24 with fucking a minute and a half, and Aaron Rodgers goes deep over the top to fucking, it's like a blown coverage, deep over the top. Randall Cobb touchdown. Fuck.
Out of the playoffs in that one play.
Dude, and the right tackle had gone down, so I was back in starting at right tackle. It was like I was fucking dominating. It was just like, an incredible season, and could have been better. I never made the playoffs. Did you go to the playoffs?
I went to the playoffs twice. Early in my career in Atlanta, we were really good. We went 13-3 my first year and third year.
Oh, yeah. That was a good team. You guys were good that year.
Yeah.
That was like 2010, 11.
2010 was my rookie year. We were the first round bye, first seed in the playoffs, lost in the first game of the playoffs. And then 2 years later, I went to the playoffs the second year too. We lost to the Giants. First year, we lost to the Packers, who went and won the Super Bowl. Second year, we lost to the Giants, went and won the Super Bowl. Third year, went and we finally won against the Seahawks on the last minute kick to go to the NFC Championship game against the 49ers. And we were up 24-3 at halftime to go to the Super Bowl, and we blew the game. That was fucking tough.
Yeah. Brutal.
So it was tough, man. So you had a resurgence of your career.
Yeah. I had the year that was really, it was a year to be like, okay, my football career is fulfilled, and came back for another year, actually ended up rupturing my hamstring during training camp because I stepped in a hole during pass pro one-on-ones.
Why was there a hole in your one-on-ones?
Dude, I mean, it's just like a fucking bad field, and literally just stepped in a divot, got on a bull rush, leg locked up, hamstring just went.
Wow.
Ended up missing all of training camp and the first 3 games of preseason. Then I'm barely getting back for like the final preseason game. And the O-line coach comes up to me in the hallway and he's like, Eb, you should play. Eb, you need to play in this game. And I'm like, okay, dude. I knew, though, his energy was fucking weird. And I knew that energy from when I had been benched my last year in Jacksonville. Like that look they get in their eyes.
Everything shifts. You know it.
You go from being the golden child to being like a complete stranger.
A dead man walking.
A dead man walking. Exactly right. But nobody's going to tell you that. So they're just, their energy is so off, and they're speaking words to you, and you know that the truth of something's happening inside of them, that they know something about you that they're not telling you. So I was sort of getting ready to be able to play, but it was going to be a struggle. Like I had no power in my right leg. And so I play in the game, end up getting cut. First time in my life, I'm cut after preseason.
And the reason they made you play in the game is to show and prove that you're healthy, so they don't owe you any money on an injury settlement.
Exactly.
Motherfuckers.
Yeah. And so that was a complete bomb dropped. But something was really different that year. It was all the same coaches, mostly the same team, and it was yet like there was something missing. That magic was gone. Even before I got cut, there was like the plays weren't being installed the same. The attention to detail was different. The energy was different. We were a record-setting offense that first year in Chicago. And I think everybody was just kind of like, we're just going to do it and it's going to be great. And it was just different. Like,
what was different about it?
It was that intangible thing, man. Just like the communication, the energy, like you felt it. But like you couldn't really put your finger on it. But something was completely different. Like it was two different teams, you know? So I get cut. First game of the season, I'm in my apartment in Chicago and we're watching game one. They're playing the Bills and 3 O-linemen go down with injuries. And by the second quarter, the GM's calling me saying, Eb, where are you, man? We need you back. I'm like, well, I'm fucking down the street, dude. So I never went anywhere. Sure. Sounds good.
Back to being the golden child.
Yeah,
quickly.
Exactly. So they signed me back on Monday, bring me back in. And then that year just ended up being, it was just like the magic was gone. I was like, oh, this is why I was done. This is why I was ready to be done. I remember now.
So all those feelings started flooding back in.
Yeah, I was like, oh yeah, I remember. And
so what was that process like going into that year? Did you decide before the end of the season that this is going to be my last year? What was that actual finality of it?
Bye week comes. I fly out. My family and I fly back to California. My high school's retiring my jersey and doing a whole retirement number ceremony and giving me an award and all this stuff. And like literally my whole family's there for it. And after the ceremony, I'm doubled over in pain. I think I've got food poisoning or there's something wrong. I'm sick. What's going on? I spent like the next 2 days in bed in agony. Like couldn't shit. Felt like I had to throw up, was nauseous, clammy, low-grade fever. It's Sunday. Our flight for back to Chicago is at noon or something. And I say, I don't think I can go. I don't think I can get on the plane. Something's wrong. So we'd go to the emergency room, check me in, do like a CAT scan or something. It was a quick test. Right away, they're like, Ab, your appendix is ruptured. We need to do emergency appendectomy right now. So did that. Ended up being in the hospital for a week. Lost about 25 pounds. My appendix had ruptured and was spewing toxic waste into my blood. Had to go on antibiotics, had to do multiple blood tests, came back to Chicago. Now it's, had to call up all the trainers and the coaches and tell everybody what had happened, obviously. Came back. And I'd lost literally 20, 30 pounds. And they say, just take it easy, rest, start to get your body back. I couldn't even really work out for a little while because they're worried about flushing the bacteria through my system, which who knows, whatever, that was their protocol. So I would have blood tests every few days and just to check for if where I was at. Finally started practicing again. And I don't know, I had just come back and I'm sitting there in the meeting room and I'm just so wiped out, dude. From my head to my toes, I'm like totally blown out. I'm popping pills just to sit there, just to like be present, to be present, Yeah. Like just so I could bear it. And I'm watching myself on film. And so now it's like week 12, 13, 14. It's towards the end of the year. It's not a great season. The team's not doing well at all. I think we're records really terrible. Not doing well. I'm sitting there watching the film, and it was so crystal clear. It was just this thought came, what are we doing here, man? What am I doing here? I'm in pain from the top of my head to the tips of my toes. I got to pop pills just to sit in this chair. I'm watching this film. I'm watching myself practice against this D end. I thought, I used to hate that guy. I used to want to kill that player. I have none of that left in me. I have none of that rage. Like, that dude's my friend. I'm over. Like, what am I doing here? There's 1,000 places I'd rather be than here. It was just like, oh, I'm done. I'm done. Finished the year, and it was just so clear. You know, that appendix was a big portal. But then about a month after the season, I'm still feeling all of that, like I'm completely done. And I get a letter from the NFL that I'd failed a drug test for Ritalin because I had gotten a TUE for Adderall and was taking Adderall. So during the appendix debacle, I came to the facility one day and was out of Adderall. God forbid I sit through a meeting without any stimulant. So I got Ritalin from a teammate thinking, hey, this treats the same thing. I have a therapeutic use exemption for Adderall. Take Ritalin. It'll be fine. Even if I get tested, I'll have a good, argument for why I took it. It'll be fine. Of course, that day I took the Ritalin. I got drug tested. So a month after the season, I get this letter, Eb, you failed this test for Ritalin. You're going to serve a 4-game suspension going into the next season. And it was just like the universe said, Eb, it's okay to be done.
What a gift.
Yeah. And I saw it as that completely.
Yeah.
And I told the whole story to my agent, and he was like, oh, yeah, dude, it makes total sense. The NFL wouldn't hear any of it. They were just like, that guy, Dr. Lombardo, I don't know if you ever talked to him.
I failed a PED test for Adderall.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I actually went through the process after I got the 4-game suspension and got the TUE after because they could backtrack that I was prescribed Adderall when I was younger for ADHD. I just didn't have all the paperwork.
Wow, dude. Interesting.
It's a very similar thing.
That's a whole other podcast, Adderall and football.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
we'll do a follow-up on that because I have a whole thing too.
Yeah, Lombardo was just like, can you think? And I was just like, dude, this is what happened. Did you ever get a prescription for Ritalin? I was like, no, man, I told you the story, you know? So anyway, Chicago said they weren't going to re-sign me. Moved my wife and daughter and I back to LA, bought a house. I was just like, I don't know what's next. I was about 90% sure I was done. Who knows? But let's just set up shop in LA and see what happens.
Does that see what happens is if there's maybe a perfect opportunity, I might go back and play.
Yeah, who knows, you know?
So how are you processing that first 6 months to a year immediately? Was it, I'm sure there was relief.
A lot of relief. You know, there's a lot of relief. It was like, I think you can relate. Joe, maybe not. I don't know. I feel like most guys who've ever played football to the extent that we've played, there's this love-hate relationship with it. And when am I going to be done?
Yeah. Every year I would play, I'd be like, and then I think
this going to be it?
Yeah, I think most NFL players at some point in the season say this might be the last year I play until the offseason comes. You get a few months off, you get some space. You're like, okay, I can go back. The money's good.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a weird, interesting dichotomy though, because there's this relief, and for me, it was this desire to experience freedom from this what felt like a self-created prison around me that I had to be doing. But also, when the finality of it hit, a few weeks after I realized I'm never gonna play the game that I love, there was an immense amount of grief with that as well. And it's just
well, that came in waves, you know. And at first, it was relief, and I was really clear. I was like, I'm done. I got calls from Atlanta and Buffalo, and I think there was one other team wanted me to come and work out. And I was just like, man, I can't even get on the plane. I can't go to the airport. That's where I'm at. I'm done. You know, I have no interest in doing this anymore. I'm ready to do the next thing. So actually then my football agent handed me off to a literary agent and we started working on my book, which was, you know, the daily life of an offensive lineman. The book turned into an article I wrote for sportsillustrated.com called What Does It Take to Stay in the NFL? You Don't Want to Know, on their editorial section called The Cauldron. You can still go read it if you look it up.
Find a link for that, put it in the show notes for everyone.
Yeah, I talked about the daily experience, you know, dealing with injuries, depression, anxiety, drugs, the pills, the pill protocols, my experience with cannabis and Adderall. And it was this stepping stone into my new life, which perhaps I wasn't even conscious of it at the time, of simply telling my story and the truth of my experience and being a messenger of truth.
Was that hard to write, the truth, with knowing that the NFL would read it? I found that I had this.
I didn't even think about that until after it got published.
Wow.
And I got mostly really, really positive, you know, calls from teammates going, Eb, it's fucking epic. Thank you, dude. This is my experience. I'm so glad you said it. I had calls from other people who were like, how the fuck could you do that? What the fuck, man? You threw us under the bus, you know.
Like all teammates saying that?
No teammates.
It was like the teams, trainers, doctors, all that
shit. You know, one of my trainers, he was really upset about it, but that's God bless you, Mike. But you know, everybody has their own perception of it.
So, and you're sharing from your perspective.
Yeah, and I was like, dude, I love you guys, man. And I understand this is a system. I'm calling out a system that's broken, that's not working, you know.
What's the biggest thing that's broken about it?
I think that this just the archaic pill protocols in particular of just dealing with putting Band-Aids on injuries, you know, and I think that's gotten a lot better since our days.
Yeah. I hope so.
From what I've heard, I mean, who knows? I don't know. I don't know many guys that are still playing. I would hope that, especially with, you know, you would think that a first class, it's a world-class enterprise, the NFL.
$25 billion industry.
Yeah,
and
some should be the top of the top.
Some of the stuff is not top of the top.
No, it's right. It's true.
Yeah.
But I just think with it, a lot of the things that have emerged over the last 10 years in wellness, with even just like how to use an ice tub, dude. How many times did you go into an ice tub and just sit up to your waist for 10 minutes?
Yeah.
You know? Or like at the highest to like your sternum or your solar plexus, you know? Like you weren't thinking about it the way we use it now, getting in full body for 3 to 5 minutes and coming out and feeling totally rejuvenated, you know?
Yeah.
We weren't using it properly.
Yeah, we were sitting in just to decrease inflammation was what we're told.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think just that alone and some of the other modalities that have emerged over the last 10 years, not necessarily that they're new modalities in the last 10 years, but that they've really come to light in the last 10 years. I think that hopefully has made its way into the NFL. I mean, you were probably like this. I feel any guy who, which is just about all of us, was really committed to his craft, you were going outside the facility for a lot of healing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I had a rolfer, I had acupuncturists, I had like people that I would go and see outside of the facility, you know, to get right physically. Yeah. So anyway, I was just calling attention to the reality of the game, man, for what we were doing, and speaking to it in a way that, just in the way of my experience, of what I had experienced throughout my career. I wasn't fucking talking shit on anybody. I was just trying to be honest about what I had gone through, what wasn't working in that world. There wasn't a lot. I mean, when you're experiencing, you know, for me during that time, I didn't have many tools or options for dealing with depression or anxiety at that stage in my life. You know, talk therapy was something that was familiar in my family. But outside of that, man, like I didn't have many options or a grid for how do I, you know, deal with this? How do I soothe myself here outside of the, you know, drugs and the alcohol and the strip clubs and shit like that? You know what I mean?
Yeah. When did those tools start coming online? Take us through the end of your career, feeling the relief in that first year done, and then getting to the point of going to that AA meeting and being at rock bottom.
The Al-Anon meeting.
The Al-Anon meeting.
It's you know, it's important to be specific because for me, it was never a drinking disease. I didn't have issues with substances. For me, I've had a thinking disease. My thoughts become unmanageable is really where my issue lies.
Yeah, take us through that. What do you mean?
So, you know, so hit rock bottom in that thing. I'm going to kill myself or I'm going to kill somebody. Have dinner with my mom and my aunt and my brother. They suggest Al-Anon. Up until then, I knew I always wanted to be fit and strong and lean when I got out of football. So I was going to the gym, was in great physical shape, had cut down. I got connected with a strength coach before I left Chicago who put me on a ketogenic plan, and
Just shredded.
Yeah, I just kept rocking that, dude, and was just like, fuck yeah. And, you know, it turned out I wasn't going to play anymore. So I started just leaning down and cutting down. And got my body better, but emotionally and mentally, I was hitting the ceiling and a wall, basically, of just like, I don't know where to go anymore. Like, I feel completely lost and broken inside. So Al-Anon came into the picture, and then slowly but surely, man, I started really committing to talk therapy. I committed to Al-Anon, started working the program, got a sponsor. This is why I was even saying that, going back to the writing, my sponsor, get to step 4 and you take an inventory. And one of the things my sponsor had me do was go back to the earliest memory I could remember and write my life story out on paper. And I did that. And it was fucking miraculous. It was a miraculous experience to put down on paper my perception of reality from as far back as I could remember up until that present moment. And it was just like explosion after explosion of realization, of taking accountability, of finding forgiveness, of getting perspective on the situation, of releasing shame, releasing guilt, releasing all of the stuff that I'd been clinging to for my whole life, you know, about, you know, whatever it might have been. I've never really been that much in the woe is me victimhood shit, but I got a lot of anger and rage at the world, man. You know, like that was where I was coming out of. And that was fueling everything I had done for my whole life, my whole football career, fueled by rage, you know? And so I got to really take a look at that and get this perspective of this blueprint of who I was and what had made me tick for 29, 30 years. And then it was just continuing to follow the signs and follow wherever the universe was taking me and following what felt good one moment at a time, which was difficult for me back then, you know, because I really believed like I had to do it the hard way. It has to be hard. It has to be difficult. It's going to be a grind. Got to do more, you know?
Where did that belief come from?
It's what I had seen. I mean, I could say, you know, my family, the personalities around me and my family, but also our culture. I mean, when you really start to look at it, dude, that's the culture we live in. You know, do more. You know, you're never enough until you've gotten this and X and Y and Z and the house and the car. The blessing for me through my football career was realizing, wow, you can have all that shit and you could still not be whole and satisfied and fulfilled and content. You can get it all, man. Millions of dollars, more access than you can ever imagine. And still you'll feel like it's not enough. So then when's it enough? When do we get to the place where it's enough? I got to the place where I was completely fucking broken down. I had nowhere else to go. I was like, okay, now what? Oh, I need to start turning my attention here, inside, to my heart. What does my soul need? What do I need? You know? Al-Anon really broke that, popped that bubble for me of just starting that process of starting to look inward and go, oh, okay, this is where the problems are solved in here. This is where it's solved. Because all of the issues that we come into contact with, it's all because we're holding on to some belief that it's got to be a certain way. Has to be this way. If it's not this way, we're fucked. My life is over if it's not like this. You just let that go, because there's a million ways it can be, man. And almost all of them are really good. You know, when we get out of our own way, when we let go of the steering wheel and just say, okay, God, what do you got for me?
What is your connection to spirit, to God, your relationship? Did that continue to evolve during this healing process? And what was the belief structure you kind of grew up in? Were you always connected to this trust in something greater, creation, or is that something you found through this healing process?
I always had a recognition of a higher power in my life, something beyond my knowing that was guiding me and moving through me in my life. I always knew that from as far back as I can remember.
It's interesting because there's got to be, with the way your career turned out, never really like getting a break, really, like constant injury after injury. Yeah. Was there any resentment or anger turned towards that higher power of like, why did this happen to me?
No. Interestingly, I may have lost connection with that to some extent. However, my whole life is God, man. I pray all day long. 2-hour drive here. I'm just talking to God, talking to myself, praying, saying affirmations, envisioning the life that I want to feel and know and experience. It's all just, everything I do in my life is about getting centered, coming back to God over and over again,
Where did that deepening of that connection happen in this journey?
This was one step at a time, remembering. Al-Anon broke that seal, led me deeper into that, into spirit, into higher power in my life. And it just, through the program, really, prayer and meditation are your, hammer and chisel, as it were, for the most part. Meditations where God speaks to you, prayer, you speak to God. That's your channel of communication with the divine right there, meditation and prayer. And Al-Anon really brought me into that. And from that moment on, I've been praying and meditating every single day for the last, 7-8 years. And it's only grown more and more so, to the point where, this year, man, and it continues to progress. And it's always this unveiling and this coming into recognition of and remembering and forgetting and coming back into knowing. And this year, going into this year, finally, I just really made the decision, because Joe, at the end of the day, we can do all the plant medicine, we can do all the stuff that we want to do, all of these brilliant tools, these practices. We can meditate, we can pray, we can use plant medicine, we can do yoga, we could go in all of these different ways. And at the end of the day, if you're not taking all of that stuff that you learn and changing how you're living and changing the decisions that you're making, none of it makes any difference. It doesn't matter. And through all of it, I recognized one day in particular, I had a really difficult day. It felt really hard, had a difficult exchange with a person I was going through some things with, and was on the verge of perhaps burning a bridge. And before I made that old decision, I said to myself, you know what, man, we're done. Everything and anything that comes up, I'm just going to come into love and acceptance of it. That's the only way through. It's never been anything else for me. Just loving what's happening in here. because I got on this spiritual journey and I'm healing and I'm unveiling I'm healing these wounds and unveiling these paradigms of belief and seeing who I am and really coming into contact with myself, big S. And I would have these moments because we're human and the ego is super slick. And I'd get angry or I'd get sad and I'd be in resistance to it because I'm like, Eb, you're too spiritual to be angry, brother. You're too spiritual to be sad. That's just complete bullshit. It's like, oh, Eb, I see you. You're angry. It's all good, brother. We see you. I love you too. I literally have a practice of anger comes up, sadness comes up, envisioning myself, my raging self standing in the doorway, and I come into the space and I give my raging self a hug and I say, dude, I love you. Of course you're fucking upset and pissed off and in a rage. Of course. I get it. And we know that doesn't lead anywhere positive. That doesn't serve the highest good in any situation that we come into contact with. However, I recognize it and I honor you in that feeling. And I love you too. And all of a sudden it would just melt. And standing behind my raging self is this 7-year-old boy who's fucking scared and doesn't know what to do, feels unsafe. And now me, grown man King Eb, can take 7-year-old Eb by the hand and say, hey, brother, I got you. I can pick up that little boy that I was that's still in here. I can go, dude, we're safe. I'm going to take care of us. There's a thing in the program of reparenting yourself. It's a big deal, It's a big deal to come to a place where you can be with whatever comes up inside of you and not make the catastrophic decision that causes all the issues that we cause in our lives. Burning the bridges, missing the opportunities, all this shit. It's all self-inflicted, because we believe it has to be a certain way. You're angry at someone. I have to be right. I have to prove them wrong and prove myself right. I have to live and breathe and die by my righteousness. Do you? Do you really? Maybe. There's always boundaries to set. However, the way that we communicate those boundaries really is how our life gets built. What does our life look like? If you like the way it looks, fantastic. If you don't like the way it looks, choose differently, make different choices, use different words. Take different actions, take better actions, and there's a way to, because once again, this was another part of my journey, because when I was 7 years old, I remember walking down the sidewalk in Brooklyn. My mom said to me, Eb, you're going to be the biggest man in the room. Every room you walk into, you'll be the biggest man in the room. And everybody, when you walk into the room, everyone can feel you and they know you're there. And you will intimidate a lot of people. She said, so you need to have your anger in check. I was a fucking rageful kid. Elementary school, I was always in the principal's office. That really imprinted on me, dude. So football became this outlet for the rage, right? However, along with that came this sort of shame and this guilt, this resistance to my anger, which created another dimension of attachment to it, essentially. Like I couldn't be that. And so, a big part of my process, literally in the last, 4 months, and it took me a long time to get there. And I developed much better tools of dealing with whatever the fuck it is that comes up inside of me. However, meditating every day for 8 years and coming to the recognition of there will always be waves of emotion. That's part of the human experience. There's no getting out of that. No matter how many fucking mushrooms I take, no matter how much weed I smoke, how much meditation I do, how much breath work I do, yoga, I'm still going to feel. So what can I do? Let me change my relationship to how I feel and what my feelings are. Am I being overwhelmed and overtaken and moved by the emotions, the feelings that are coming up inside of me? Or, which usually means that I'm in resistance to them because I'm going, I can't be fucking angry. I can't be fucking angry. I can't be fucking angry. And then there's the explosion. right? Or the rash decision, or the, too quick a response. The reactionary thing happens because that's just how we're programmed. We're programmed. We're living off programming. But when we get to the place where we know better and we have the awareness, now let's fucking make a different decision, dude. You feel angry. Okay, great. Now I can take a breath. I can take 3 breaths. I can take an entire day. Let myself come down, feel it, process that, honor it, acknowledge it, recognize that self, come into love and acceptance of myself, without judgment, so that I can respond to the situation in a way that serves my life in its highest good. And outside of that, man, this is what it is for me. It's just this constant process, self-study, observation, loving and accepting it, whatever comes up. Because then you get to really change. You get to really fucking change. This guy sitting in this chair right here, right now, different human being than that guy. 10 years ago, my football career, a year ago, different guy, And it's a miracle. It's a miracle. It's all God, man.
Beautiful, beautifully said, brother. Appreciate that. Yeah, the power of connecting with emotions is everything. And being able to regulate your own nervous system. These are tools that every single person should be taught. But
1,000%.
Talk about psychedelics and how they've played a role in your healing journey and your connection to God and kind of your relationship with them. I'm sure there's probably a recreational use into more of a ceremonial use, more into implementing ritual process. Talk about how powerful they've been in your life and how you use them now.
They've been a big part of the journey for sure. I always found this gravitational pull towards plant medicine. And it really started with cannabis as a teenager, which I'd use in spurts and here and there, and had some really powerful experience with cannabis, like complete ego death, like terrifying experiences, being completely discombobulated by cannabis.
As a teenager?
Yeah.
It's so funny. And then you just, why do we keep going back for more?
Yeah, exactly. Like, what am I looking for? So, did a little bit here and there throughout my football career as far as, I think, mushrooms I had one really powerful mushroom experience during my NFL career, which was really powerful. It just sort of, it was very expansive and enlightening and just showing me how much there was to me, which I knew. However, when you see it in that light, it's validating and reassuring. And, I didn't necessarily know what to do with it at that time. But so fast forward coming through to getting into Al-Anon, the 12 steps that brought me to meditation and prayer and more talk therapy and back to yoga. And sometime around then, so this is like early 2017, I'm feeling pretty disillusioned with what I'm doing professionally. I'd started the CBD company. It's not really just not jiving with the people, and we're on different pages, and I'm not really interested in pushing a product and having a company. It's not what interests me. And I'm realizing all of these things. And I had been invited to go see a friend's office in Burbank, and they were in the cannabis space, and they were doing some pretty interesting things with this technology, sort of like a nanotechnology type thing. They call it polarizing particles to make them more bioavailable. That was interesting. So I went to see him at his office, and he's introducing me to the whole team, and he gets this guy who's standing in the corner. He's got a baseball bat on his shoulder. He's just got these piercing eyes. And my buddy Jeff goes, "Eb, this is Kirk. Kirk, why do you have that baseball bat?" And Kirk, he's an Australian dude, and he says Kirk has became one of the most important mentors of my entire life. And he said, "You never know who's going to walk through that door, mate. This big fucker looks like he might be a problem." And we just like burst out laughing, because it was sort of one of those moments. I was coming into contact with some strong masculine energy that I hadn't been in contact with since football. So I really got it and I appreciated it, and we laughed. And they're like, "Well, let's go up to the conference room and we'll talk. I'll tell you more about the company up there." So we're sitting at this conference table. There's a handful of guys around, and Kirk is just fucking staring at me, dude. I'm like, the fuck is this guy looking at? And everybody's talking, and all of a sudden, Kirk goes, "Eb, you're a shaman. You're a medicine man. You come from a long family. You come from a long lineage of medicine people, and you need to quit fucking around and step into that." And I was like, the fuck, dude? What? And it was informing something that I had felt in myself for a long time. Really going back to like as long as I could remember, it was informing this thing. And I was like, what the fuck is he talking about? And I'm looking around the room and everybody's like, you should listen to Kirk. Kirk was their corporate shaman. He worked on the right hand of the CEO and setting the river of energy for the company and taking, really clearing out the cancer and getting them dialed in energetically, spiritually, mentally, emotionally. So Kirk's like, "I don't really do this, but let's go get a coffee. I have a lot to tell you. I'm just getting a hit. I got to tell you all this stuff." I'm like, "All right." They're like, "You should go to coffee with Kirk." I'm like, "Okay." And remember, I'm a little disillusioned at that stage. And of course, right? Of course, the moment I'm feeling completely disillusioned and disconnected and like I don't know where to go, I come into contact with this guy who's the catalyst for the next phase of the journey. So we go and have coffee. He's telling me all this stuff. "Eb, you're a medicine man. You come from a long line, a family lineage of witches and shamans and medicine people." And he's like, "You need to start learning about where you come from." Then he says to me, "Eb, I'm taking the whole team to do combo next week. I think every time I think about it, you come into my mind. I think it would really serve you. And I think you should definitely come with us if it calls."
Do you have any idea what combo is at this point? And explain it too if people don't know.
I had no clue about it. I'm like, "Okay, what's combo?" And he's like, "Well, it's this poison from the green monkey frog. It comes from the Amazon. And a shaman burns these holes in your arm or anywhere around your body, and then they spackle this poison in, and you go on a 15-minute, it's like the worst flu of your life. You're spinning, you're vomiting, you're clearing out." And he says they call it the warrior cleanse, and they do this 3 times in one moon cycle. And they do it before they go on hunts, and it tunes them into their surroundings and the environment and increases synchronicities and clears out emotional shit and all this stuff. And it's a physical and emotional and mental purge. And I'm like, "Really, dude? I don't know, man. What?
Why are we doing this?
Well, I don't know, bro." I was like, "Is it dangerous?" "Well, it can be." I'm like, "I don't know, dude." But during that time, he's telling me all this shit about who I am in my life, and we've never met. And I'm just bursting into tears. It was like the next it was the next shedding of skin after the Al-Anon had pierced the initial seal and broken me down. And now this was like another unveiling of myself, unzipping. So I'm like, all right, well, I guess I'll think about it. We walked back to his car, and we were in this place at this coffee shop in North Hollywood, and his car's on the street, and in the windshield wiper is a card of a combo practitioner who had left this card in his windshield wiper from the time we went to have coffee to coming back. And he like pulls the card up and he's like, "Huh, The universe speaks, and he hands me the card. And I'm like, what the fuck, dude? So, of course, I end up doing combo. And we do the 3 times in one moon cycle. And combo is an amazing medicine, super powerful. Done it a few times.
Yeah, how was that initial experience you went through?
Like nothing I'd ever experienced before. We did it at sunrise, brought 2 gallons of water, was fasted from the night before, started drinking lots of water. This was with a shaman from the Yawanawa tribe down in Brazil. Shout out. Amazing people. Just an amazing experience overall. Was served hape, drinking the water, filling your stomach, and then they come and they administer the combo, and you know, you just start to feel this power move through you, pumping through your blood, and it's moving its way into your heart, and you start to, it felt like I had the jungle, I had the forest inside of my body, and I could feel the pulse of the frog's energy moving through, and extremely powerful. Throat swelled a little, tongue swelled a little. This thing is happening. Your stomach's filled with water. And I start purging and just start throwing up everything, all the contents of my gut. Lasted for maybe 15 minutes or so, 20 minutes, and you're completely emptied. You know, you rest for a little while, and came out of it, and I never felt so emotionally and mentally clear in my whole life.
Wow.
One of the most powerful experiences I've ever experienced. And what was really interesting, the third session of it, so you do it all, you do 3 times in one moon cycle. They call that the Warrior's Cleanse. Excuse me. And at the third session, felt it work through my system, and then it sat at my appendix for about 10 minutes. And I could just feel this thing in my, like where my appendix was. And it was just, I could tell it was working out and clearing all of the shit, all the blockage in there. And then it just released. And combo is really powerful. About a month after combo, did ayahuasca, same thing with Kirk. And that really felt like coming home. That was a big experience of seeing my entire life before me, and every single step I had taken on the journey was so perfect in getting me here. And I just saw it like a symphony. The next ayahuasca ceremony was the most miserable experience of my life. Just took one serving and sort of grooving and feeling it, and went up for the second serving and was immediately plunged into turmoil. Physical turmoil, felt nauseous, went to the bathroom, stepped out of the bathroom, and in this room full of, there were probably 30 people there, I was completely alone. It was like I was dropped into the center of the universe and I was all alone. I was completely isolated. And of course you can't leave. So I'm like, whew. All I wanted to do was get the fuck out of there. I wanted to do anything but be there. I said, all right, we're just going to go to our mat. And we just started breathing. And I sat there and I was just breathing. And I thought to myself, man, I've not been this miserable in a long time. Felt so alone, felt hopeless, helpless, like in blackness. I looked across the room. The shaman looked like he was 25 miles away. And then all of a sudden, my daughter and her mother came into my mind, and I just felt all of the emotions in the human spectrum and just burst into tears and ended up spending the next 5 hours crying. And that was really powerful. And something that's interesting about the medicine, at least in my experience, is that you get a lot of information, and most of those messages that I received didn't even make sense for another 6 months, year plus, like I'd be doing something in my day or having a conversation, and the ceremony would come back into my mind, and I'd go, oh, whoa, that's what that was about, So, those were big ceremonial plant medicine experiences. Did a lot of psilocybin that were more just solo journeys on my own, which ended up being just my preferred form of ceremony. Take some psilocybin, take some mushrooms, go on a 2, 3, 4 hour hike, and just, completely let it go and just be with myself. Other times, putting a yoga mat down in my living room floor and just letting the medicine take me on a trip. A lot of LSD. And it was all very beneficial. I did LSD for probably almost a year, and
how often?
Just about every day.
Really?
Yeah.
Like full doses or microdosing?
More than a micro.
Yeah.
Not every time was like a full dose, but much more than a micro.
Every day for a year.
Yeah, and it got to the point where it just, the medicine was taking me, it was overwhelming me, and the trip with the medicine had come to an end.
What was the intention of, did you decide I want to do this every day? What was the thought process behind that?
It was really just intuitive, man, and seeking.
Yeah.
I was seeking.
Were you losing sense of what's real, what's not at all? Was there any of that?
No, it was all very clearing. And that's where it got to. It got to the place where I was plunged into fear and anxiety and had to literally get up and walk for, 2 hours to come down. And it was just like, oh, this isn't working anymore, and needing to take a break. I mean, it wasn't literally every day, but it was multiple days a week,
Yeah. Talk about that seeking, because I think that's something really big, especially in this space. And we talked about it a little bit earlier. I think you alluded to, of looking for that answer outside yourself. And it was something I definitely, especially getting into the plant medicine space, one of the biggest things leaving football is like, who am I and what am I here to do? What's my purpose now? What's the deeper meaning of life? And I found this desire to search for that in these plant medicine ceremonies. And in my 11th ayahuasca ceremony, I got just blasted off into infinity. And it was one of the most frightening experiences of my life. I was in my room alone because all the medicine hit me late. And I had this really profound realization of any thought I had, I literally started creating an entire reality around it. So I was my thoughts creating realities. And I had this thought of what am I here for? Why am I here? And I realized I'm seeking for something. And in that moment, I realized I am the thing I'm searching for.
Yeah.
I am infinite potential. And that changed my relationship with not just plant medicine, but that desire to seek the answer outside of myself. Speak to that a little bit.
Well, that's where it all brings you, man. Because there's no getting out of here or going anywhere else. It's all right here, And that's really where it's taken me, to the point where I look at life as the medicine. My life is my medicine. Every interaction I have, everything I come into contact with is an opportunity for me to have an experience of myself, to see where I'm at, to see how I move. What are the mechanisms, these guiding mechanisms of my programming? How do they manifest? And the only way to see that is through life experience, and taking everything as this ceremonial opportunity to change, make new decisions, and build the life that I desire, which is essentially rooted in love and acceptance and joy. We can be in joy. You're doing something, man, And for me, learning how to love myself through it all, I'll microdose here and there. I love plant medicine. It was such a powerful tool for me during my life, and recognizing at the end of the day, these plants, while they're such important and powerful tools, they're not going to do the work for us. Like, we have to start. Once you get that message of knowing, okay, this isn't working, or what am I supposed to do? For me, one of the painful realizations for that identity of myself as being this doer and accomplisher and conqueror, to realize that the overriding purpose of my life is to fucking be. It was simultaneously crushing and liberating to get the download of, Eb, you can do whatever the fuck you want to do, man. You can do whatever you want to do. You want to have a podcast? Do it. You want to start a company? Do it. You could do it all. None of that is actually like your destiny. Your destiny is to be a fucking light in the world. How do you be a light? You be the best version of yourself you could possibly be. Every room you walk into, can you walk in there and connect with people? You don't have to be bright and shiny and it's all butterflies and fucking rainbows and we're in the light. No, it doesn't have to be like that. But you come into a room and you connect with people. You allow people the experience of just being themselves without any expectation of having to be anything other than that. That's a powerful thing. That sends ripples through the universe that you can't even comprehend. And coming to terms with that in myself is just like, Eb, all you got to do is be. And for me, because I recognized that when I started that CBD company, and I felt like I did when I was playing football, I'm pissed off and I'm feeling like I'm not good enough, or I'm feeling like this isn't it, or this isn't the place I want to be in. And I'm walking into that room. I affect everybody in that place with my fucking energy. And I realized it when I was in that CBD company. I walked in one day and I was just pissed off. I didn't want to be there. I didn't really like the people I was doing this company with. The sweet little secretary at the office building said hi to me. And I might have grunted at her, walked into my office, sat down and said, Eb, it didn't feel good. It doesn't feel good. Because I know that I flattened her energy with my shit, I was doing this podcast a couple weeks ago. Kelsey sharing the Brass and Unity podcast. Shout out to you, Kelsey. She's totally awesome. And she said this great thing because we were having this conversation like, why are we, what is this thing about healing? And really, we have a responsibility to heal ourselves. And she said she put it in such a great way. And she said, because otherwise we're walking around bleeding on people who didn't cut us. I was like, well said. We have a responsibility to make ourselves whole, to heal our wounds, to become the best person we can be. And when you do that, man, like you go in, everywhere you go, you're just present enough, because you can tell whether somebody is in a bad mood, a good mood, suffering, happy, experiencing joy, whatever they're experiencing, you have this feeling arise in you when you know that they're present and they're there and they're looking you in the eye. They shake your hand. They say, how you doing? Doesn't have to be, oh, I'm great. I'm okay. Hey, I respect that. And I respect that you're here with me, that we're here together, that you're not somewhere else, right? You're not trying to be something else. You're not putting anything on. You're just here to be. And, man, all this stuff that I've done and my daily practice, which, every day I wake up, drink a big glass of water, meditate for 20 minutes. I do about 20 more minutes of breath work. I do a little movement, stretching, workout, whatever I can do before I start my day. All of that stuff is all simply in the name of getting myself centered and grounded in me, in my heart, so that I can be available to my life, and available to myself. And so whatever comes up, there's always going to be things. Life is chaos. It's just what it is. It's constantly happening and moving and shaking and twisting and doing what it does. That's nature. That's the universe. It's like stars collide, things happen, things grow. There's life, there's death, there's rebirth. There's all this stuff happening constantly. And so, are you going to be available to that? If you're wrapped up in all your stories and your shit and your pain, and you're walking around like that and you're letting that overwhelm your experience of life, you're not available to it. You're just not available. It's not possible, And so that's really just become my life practice, man. I don't know what else I'm doing here. I teach yoga, I teach breathwork, I teach meditation. The stuff that I'm doing, I'm podcasting, I'm doing events. Other than that, man, that's just what I do, That's that when that used to be, man, coming out of my football career, this is who I am. It's just stuff I do. I'm Eb. I'm here to connect with you. I'm here. I hope that whoever I come into contact with me, all I hope is that they felt comfortable to be themselves. That's it.
Oh, well said, my man. And this healing journey, there's so many layers and going on and really confronting the inner workings of ourself and starting to heal that. You get to a point where there's also these collective wounds, the society we've grown up in, all the programming and all the ancestral trauma or the things that have been passed down and all the war and unprocessed grief and all this energy accessing. And it seems like we're in this point where there's this opportunity to go down, the spectrum of one or two paths, off the cliff into total annihilation of the human species, or this opportunity to this great awakening, and how that takes place. It could really anywhere on the spectrum. So widening the perspective out, how do you think this unknown experience that we're going into unfolds?
For me, I think it's a great question. And the solution that arises in me is all of us just become the person we were destined to be. Just be the best person, best version of you that you can possibly be.
Why is that so hard for people?
It's funny, isn't it? Whatever the background, the backdrop might be, growing up in a materialist society is detrimental in its own right. You think about, I'm watching that show Vikings. Have you watched it?
No, I need to.
God, brother.
I feel like that's a past life we've lived together.
Bro, we were that.
Yeah.
I'm watching this show. It's a fucking transformative show. And you talk about really, I feel like watching this show, I've really integrated that warrior. It had been integrating for the last few years, I would say, into my being proud of that and fucking standing in that strength and that power. But watching this show, it's taken me full circle to be like, this is who we are. We're warriors. And it looks different now. They lived in a world full of chaos and violence. Like that's what they lived in. It was a very hard life, like looking around, it's almost funny watching the show. It's like, we do nothing, dude.
Yeah, our lives are so easy.
Like this shit is a joke.
Yeah.
It's a joke compared to what it was. Like it was life and death every day, I wanted to say that big picture because we're completely on the edge, man. I think we've completely hit critical mass with how we've been operating. And it's time for a radical revolution. And it's a revolution of love and acceptance. And that sounds crazy to people. And I'm not talking about, love, hippy dippy, it's all love and light, man, and it's all good. It's like, no, recognizing that life is really difficult and painful and there's suffering as a reality and learning how to accept, be in acceptance of that too. so that then we don't go on making those same decisions. Because, it's an interesting thing to think, but are we living out of fear or are we living in love? Are we making our decisions based on fear or based on love? Like every time you go to make a decision about your life, you're feeling something upcoming. You're feeling something coming up inside of you. And noticing, what is that feeling? Is it this fear spiral of, oh my God, I have to do this because of X. Oh my God, I have to do this because if I don't, I'll lose my job, or I'll lose this, or this will happen, or whatever it might be. And if that decision is not in alignment with actually your soul's truth, which is the thing that serves you and your highest good. Because, dude, we're going to have many jobs. We're going to get cut. We're going to get fired. We're going to, death is a reality. We're going to have all of these things happen to us throughout our lives that are going to be outside of the trajectory of what we deemed as preferred or acceptable. Those things are going to happen. It's going to happen. So what are we going to be like when it happens? Are we going to be totally fucking flat-backed, crushed by it, unable to make another move? And inevitably, we will all find our way because we get crushed in life, dude. We get crushed. Can you pick yourself back up again? And for me, can I get to a place where I smooth out that transition? I smooth out that plane in between, that place between A and B where you're going, holy fuck, what happened? I'm in total chaos. Just be in the chaos. Can you be at peace in the chaos? That's a practice, dude. That's something to really practice. Can you be at peace in the chaos so that you're not reacting to your circumstances and that you're able to respond and make a new decision that will undoubtedly make the situation better, that doesn't cause more havoc, wreak more violence and more damage, and actually helps to build for a brighter tomorrow. That's a really powerful thing. And I think that's where we're at, man. The old paradigm, it's dead. We can't do it anymore. We can't solve the problems by going to war. We have to be able to make new decisions, because complete calamity, a complete annihilation, perfect word, is on the other end of continuing to go down that old paradigm. I have a lot of faith. I'm filled with hope and light, man. I see it every day. I see people changing and making new decisions. I feel and see, maybe it's just because of what I believe and where I'm at in my own life. I see and feel people making new decisions for a better world tomorrow. I do.
Same. I love that you brought in the story around the warrior, because what's required to find peace in that chaos is the tools to learn how to regulate your own nervous system and understanding itself.
Yes, and exactly right.
The courage it takes to actually do that, and to embody that courage fully, we need more warriors.
1,000%.
Not in the sense of we're going to go to war, but standing in that archetypal energy that lives within all of us of having the courage to do the right thing and to hold that loving presence even in the face of darkness.
1,000%, bro. And that doesn't mean you're a fucking pushover. I've had this interesting realization watching social media, and I have a guy who cuts clips. He does a brilliant job, Jarrett, and cut this clip, me talking about fear and love. And what I noticed, because it was a very polarizing clip, and a lot of people said, well, yeah, if you're living in love, you're just ignoring reality, and you're going to wind up with a fucking boot on your neck and being enslaved. And I'm like, okay, interesting to know where you're at mentally, because it's all just this like interesting projection of what's happening inside of people. But people misconstrue fear, living in fear, with being prepared or living in preparation of. And those are two completely different things. In fact, if you're living in fear, especially the modern day fear, which is not necessarily at all connected to our innate primal instinct of fear, which fear is super valuable, dude. You're out in the fucking wilderness and a grizzly bear comes upon you. You want that fight or flight to kick in. You fucking pump adrenaline, you pump stress hormones, you're in fucking high alert mode. You can do what you need to do to survive. But now we live in this hyper civilized environment that's super comfortable, and we get plunged into fight or flight at any moment. The email comes, the phone call comes, our heart rate spikes, we start producing adrenaline and cortisol and all of these things, and we're in fight or flight. It's not serving us. We're mouth breathing. You know, we have no access to the prefrontal cortex. The amygdala has completely overridden the system. How are you supposed to make a real good decision that will serve you in your life if you're living in that state? Which after so many years, so many people are just living in this low hum of fight or flight constantly. They would step out of their home and they're living in fight or flight. And so every decision they make is coming out of that frazzled nervous system, you know? How can you make a real decision about anything if you're living in that state and you know nothing else? So that's a lot different. If you're living in a state of fear, paranoia, and anxiety, you're blinded from all the solutions. Meanwhile, every word that you speak and action you take is moving you towards bringing that belief into fruition. Right? So living in fear and preparing yourself for whatever the unknown has for us are two completely different things. When you're living in love and moving from love, you're moving with God. You're moving with the highest good, your higher self, which is connected to the divine, the source of all things. You're moving from that place, which is going to take care of you. You're going to be in the right place at the right time, exactly when you need to be there, and you had no idea about it. You were just moved there by spirit, but only because you were living in a place of love and openness and like in a belief, a deep-rooted belief that life is good and that you deserve good things. You'll be well prepared for whatever comes.
It's got to have the openness to listen and to see
1,000%.
That's happening all the time.
And you're going to feel fear.
Yeah.
You're going to feel fear, man. I know you've been talking about it a lot. You're going to feel fear. I mean, I'm in a place, I'm completely surrendered to God. I feel fear all the time. It's just like, okay.
That's
I see you, brother.
Yeah, fear and courage are the same frequencies. And the reason that I say that is because fear and courage, you can't have one without the other.
Totally true.
If there was no fear, there would not be an opportunity to be courageous. So what I've learned is to recognize that fear is an opportunity and that frequency of fear to step into courage.
Love that, bro. I love that. It's a powerful thing. It's a powerful shift. You know, it's a very powerful shift. And I think we're moving there, man. I think that, you know, it's a really powerful time to be alive. There's a lot of shit. There's a lot of things moving. There's a lot of energy moving in the world. It looks totally crazy. I haven't watched the news in a decade. I can't watch it. It's a distraction. It's an illusion.
It's an illusion. Yeah.
It's not reality.
Mm-hmm.
However, if you're buried in that, what else do you think? That's programming your entire perception of reality, of what you think this life is and what it is, like how it's going to be. I mean, so anyway.
Yeah, beautiful, Eb. You are a freaking medicine man. I wanted to circle back with the final question to Kirk, having this experience of telling you you're a medicine man, you need to be connected and start bringing that forth. Talk about that, where you're at now, and how do you embody that and show up, and what have you done with that information?
Yeah, it's interesting. Well, you know, when he told me that being a shaman or a medicine man really for me was the image that arose was someone who facilitates plant medicine journeys. And so that was sort of my overriding idea about that, my belief, and sort of the identification of that label that my mind just immediately put on that. Everything I'd known about a shaman or a medicine man, it's about, serving ayahuasca or serving combo or whatever it might be, Talking about plant medicine as well, hape is also one of my favorite medicines. Anyway, that aside, couple days after we have that coffee and he tells me that, I get a letter from my grandmother, and she's giving me all of this information about our first American ancestor, who's a woman named Mary Bliss Parsons, who came to America in 1640, settled a town in Massachusetts. She was on trial for witchcraft 3 times. There's a number of books written about her, and she was all about her philosophy about being connected with nature and a higher power, and descended from the Pleiadians, and food as medicine, and herbs and roots and all of this stuff, and communing with God, and really powerful shit, dude. So all of this comes in, and she had never told my mom about it or my aunt. Like, she, for whatever reason, gave me this information 2 or 3 days after I had this conversation with Kirk. So it was like just tapping into my lineage and knowing, and it really learning about her, and then doing as much studying as I could about where she came from. And she was descended from Druids, who were basically these, Vikings that came to England. They built Stonehenge and were fucking these super mystical, this mystical tribe of people, basically, who set up law and order and all of that. So learning about that, it was like, oh, okay. And, while the plants have always been very, very powerful tools for me, I have never felt necessarily called to serve them. And so my medicine has become, or has revealed itself, really, is the truth. As the medicine that I serve is being myself, my message, handing off these tools that have greatly benefited me in my life, the breath work and the yoga. I got certified as a yoga teacher in Bikram, 300 plus hours. And I love teaching yoga. For me, yoga, the hot yoga in particular, is the ultimate medicine of my life. Like, complete psychedelic journey in 90 minutes. I get in there 3 to 5 days a week. And, the medicine is whatever's called for in the moment, and the only way that reveals itself is if I'm totally present and got my fucking ego, this part of myself that is constantly having to prove. When that person is out of the way, that persona's out of the way, then the divine can come through, and that's the medicine for the moment. And so that's really where I'm at, man, in this journey of just being as true as I can be to this thing happening inside of me, and
being
just
present for it.
Being present for it,
I really appreciate you, man.
I appreciate you, Joe.
Awesome, man. One last question, specifically speaking to it could be NFL guys, but really any elite athlete that may be going through the transition and kind of in the thralls of the challenge of that. Is there any words of advice or wisdom to share for people that may be struggling, before they've gotten to this point where they've had that breakthrough?
I would say, first and foremost, recognize, man, that you're not alone. You're not alone. You got a lot of people. You got at least one person in your life who cares deeply for you. Reach out to that person. Tell them that you're struggling. Tell them what's going on. You're not alone. You don't have to carry this burden by yourself. And have some compassion for yourself, for where you're at in this journey. You've dedicated your entire life to this thing. Poured sweat, blood, tears, every ounce of your soul into this endeavor, and you were more successful and achieved more in that lifetime, because it's like it's its own life, than most people will ever get to experience in the entirety of their lives. Recognize that, honor that. You did everything you could. Know that. Have some compassion for yourself for where you're at. Know that it takes some time to come out the other side of figuring out who you are, and know that you're not alone, and just have the willingness to listen. Be willing and open, man. I think there's no more important aspects on the journey wherever you're at than just being willing and open to whatever comes your way, and being able to be in that and not be tied to some idea of what it's got to look like or how it's got to be or what you have to do or what you have to prove or what you got to accomplish because that guy over there did it and why am I not there? All of those things mean nothing in your life journey. You've done so much to get to where you are. You're a fucking miracle. You are a miracle. Know that. Know that you're not alone. You don't have to carry it all yourself. And just take it one day at a time.
Yeah, because it does take time. Be patient with yourself. Eb, where can people find you? What are you working on now? How can people connect with you? And if there's anything else that you want to share?
Thanks, man. Instagram is probably my biggest thing on social media at EDS Britton. Looks like Ed's Britton. That's my two middle names, Eben Daniel Smith Britton. Go to ebenbritton.com. That's got links to everything. I've got a book, The Ebb and Flow, Basic Tools to Transform Your Life. It's on Amazon and audiobook. My podcast, The Ebb and Flow. It's available on all platforms. And then I've got events. I do bi-weekly virtual live gatherings, 90 minutes, breath work, yoga, guided meditation, followed by a Q&A. Check those out. And then my next in-person event is August 12 and 13 outside Seattle, Lake Stevens, Washington. It'll be awesome. It's Heal and Flow, yoga, breathwork, ice tubs, incredible food, great products, amazing people. Great experience. Would love to see you guys there.
Beautiful. All that will be in the show notes. Damn, dude. Thank you.
Thank you, man.
Appreciate you, brother. This is awesome.
Yeah. So good, Joe. Thank you, bro.
Yeah, these shows just keep it getting better, man. And thank you all who are listening. If something in this episode inspired you and maybe someone came into your awareness during one of the stories that you think would be impacted by some of the stuff that you've been shared, make sure you share this podcast with them. If you're enjoying it, the best way to support is to leave a 5-star review, say some nice things. And don't forget to follow and subscribe because these episodes just keep getting better and better. And you're not going to want to miss the future episodes, the future guests that I got lined up. Appreciate y'all. Till next time. Peace.